Yep, great. I hope all of you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yep, all right. So let's proceed. So what we did is just an Nmap scan. But with the details that we grabbed here, we can proceed with a lot of different tasks. For example, identifying a critical service can be the starting point for our attack. So to proceed with this particular process, we are approaching from two different angles. So let's look at things that we need to do when we are part of external pen test and things that we must do when we are part of internal pen test. There are few advanced techniques that we must consider when we are performing some external or perimeter pen test, which we will look at later, mostly in tomorrow's session. But for today's session, let us focus on the most common things that we do. So we are done with basic Nmap scan, but there are a few more other things that you can add to your actual scan that we performed before. Without a version detection option, Nmap is not going to identify what is the exact version of software that is running. Do remember, most of the Nmap scans require root privileges. So running the Nmap scan with sudo or as a root user by switching to the root user account will help you in identifying those details. So to show you this particular difference, let's go with a scan, a common scan on all different targets that we have, all three targets that we have without port specification option. What I want to see is the result, no matter whether it is open or closed, along with the reason. And this time, let us perform a version detection scan. Or let's do it without version detection scan and see what it results, and then we'll add version detection option. The very short time we got the result back. This is all because of the TCP sync scan that we are doing, right? If you are going with inverse scans, can take time, and most importantly, if you are going with UDP scans, it takes even more time. So it is always recommended to run these scans in the background, and in the meanwhile you can jump onto some other activities like manually enumerating the server, looking at the web service if it is there, right, and bunch of script scans that we can do with Nmap and so on. So we did this scan without version detection, and if you carefully observe, there are a lot of ports that are open on Metasploitable 2, which we already know, but one of those ports is there with a service as unknown. What is the reason? Nmap, without specifying version detection option, will simply perform the scan and identify whether the port is open or not, and it will display what type of service generally runs on that port, right, as part of the service section. In fact, port 21 generally runs FTP. That doesn't mean that every time when you see port 21, it must be of FTP. It can be other service also. Administrator may configure some other service at this port 21, and you will see that particular service running there. Only if you run a version detection scan. Similar to this, on 141, which is HSV box. So to keep it very simple, I'll call it as V box and a normal box, as this one has a normal box and this one has V box. Okay, just to keep it different and simple. And in case of V box, you are seeing port 21, 80 and 8080. So there are generic service related details, but we don't know what is the exact service running there. In fact, port 8080 may run something else apart from HTTP service. And in case of 170 5, you are seeing only 2 ports that are open, 22 and 80. Let's change this a little bit. And this time, let us skip the name resolution part because we already know that the target is running on IP address. There is no domain name. So no need to send the, no need to convert this domain name to IP address. So I'm going to add -n option. Along with that, a version detection scan. Please note that only version detection scan will tell us what is the exact service running, because version detection scan will make a connection to the target service and grab the banners that are running on that. So by simply looking at this result, you can see there are a lot of services that are running on the target machine, and Metasploitable 2 8180 port is actually running a HTTP service. So with the previous scan, without version detection, we saw this as unknown. Now we are able to see that it is HTTP. So please note down this point in your notes. Version detection scan will only tell what is the exact service running on the target. If I proceed further, in case of VBox, you can see FTP port is open, HTTP and HTTP port. With version detection scan, we are able to see the version of the software and also the exact version detail, I mean version number. But for few services like this one, we are not able to see what is the exact version of the software. So if you carefully observe ESFTPD 2.0.8 or later, and in this case, there is only 22 and 80 open, but we don't see this kind of confusion here. For Apache, it is clearly telling what is the exact version of Apache. And here also for Nginx, it is clearly telling what is the exact version of Nginx. So this detail is very important for us to identify vulnerabilities, because the very first thing that comes into our mind is VSFTPD 2.3.4. If I'm not wrong, if you have tried VSFTPD 2.3.4 exploit on the box that we have shared last week, that is not going to run there. I mean, that is not going to work there because that is not VSFTPD 2.3.4. The exploit that you are running is very specific to the version of VSFTPD. So how can we identify what is the exact version of software? Let us take this to the next level. With the help of Nmap script scans, we can take advantage of identifying the exact version of the software. So now that you know it is FTP service, some version of FTP, or it is an FTP service for sure. What happened? I am not able to operate this terminal. Something wrong? Let's reopen the terminal. I am not able to do it. Why? Let me restart the device. So let's look at what are the commands that we executed. We don't have that history. Let's run it once again. So nmap with -P n, and I'm going to skip the name resolution. These are the two common options that I always use, and I told you the reason why. version detection scan and -small I capital L with the details of our targets, right? This is the scan that helped us identify that it is some version of VSFTPD. Now, instead of directly jumping onto Nmap script scan, you can also take advantage of basic utilities like netcat or telnet for identifying what is the version. For example, we know that the target 207, which is metasploitable 2, is running SSH or VSFTPD, right? You can simply use netcat. Netcat is a Swiss Army knife. We can use netcat for connecting to the open ports, or you can start an open service. I mean, you can open a port on your computer, or you can use this netcat for file sharing and a lot of other activities too. We use netcat a lot of times while trying to get a reverse connection from the target machine and so on. So let's use netcat here to connect to the target port. 207 is the IP address if I'm not wrong, and port 21. And this connection, we are not there with the credentials, that is a different story, but we are able to see the banner immediately when we try to connect. So let's apply the same for this particular device where we are not able to identify what is the exact version of the software. So it is 141. Let's see what it results. So the banner is modified, so we are not able to see the exact version of the software. Please note this. Whenever we are trying to grab banners, if we are not able to see the exact version of the software, it is no surprise because the banners are customized most of the times. If the banner is not modified, the banner or the configuration, if the actual message that is to be displayed on the screen is not modified, then you will be able to see the exact version of the software. So using this basic netcat, we are not able to identify it. How about using Nmap scripts? At first, let us go and locate all different scripts that are present as part of Nmap installation. So locate everything that ends with NSC. I hope you all used Nmap scripts before. Have you used Nmap scripts before? If yes, please drop S in the chat, or if you are completely new to Nmap scripts, please drop N in the chat so that I can go a little bit detailed to give you the brief idea about it. All right. I think you used this aggressive scan, am I right? I think you did this aggressive scan before with capital A option. So if I perform Nmap with capital A on 192.168.0.207, this aggressive scan will actually perform the version detection, script scan, operating system detection, and bunch of other activities. So it is not just going to do the port identification, it is going to do a lot of different tasks. Are you observing that? It took somewhere around 20 seconds, 20.02 seconds to complete. But for a normal basic scan that we did, I think we combined all the three and performed it, right? So all three scans took just 11.69 seconds there, but aggressive scan is a combination of a lot of different things. So it actually took somewhere around 20.02 seconds. Of course, this is for only one mission. If I do it for all three missions, it will be even more time consuming. All right. So in this case, we are able to see the port is open and the version of the software, but along with that, we are also seeing additional details. So the same exact version that you saw here is also part of the banner. So this is because of the Nmap script. There is an Nmap script that is specially going to work by grabbing the banner of the service. Not only that, there are a bunch of other Nmap scripts that can give you more details related to the service. One of those functionalities that FTP servers are mostly configured with is anonymous login. Means even if you don't have the actual login details, you can log in as an anonymous user onto the server, right? If anonymous FTP is allowed. We'll see on how we can take advantage of all these misconfigurations. But let's look at the second device where we are not able to see all these details. But this time, let me do the aggressive scan. What is the IP address of that device? Where we are not able to identify the information. It is 141, right? So 141. Again, it is going to take a lot of time because this is going to identify the ports first, 1000 ports. Again, the same common 1000 ports. So this is a standard rule. If you're not specifying how many ports to scan, it is going to run on only common 1000 ports. Are you observing how much data that we have? So if you carefully observe Nmap aggressive scan that I performed, identified the version, but the Nmap script FTP syst script actually identified the exact version of the software. Right? This is where the differences lie between basic version detection scan and a script scan. Scripts are specially designed to do that job. So if you carefully observe, yet another script, which is a non-FTP anon, is also executed on the target, and it identified that anonymous FTP login is allowed. And inside that particular login, there is a file called as buckbeak. Great. Apart from that, port 80, it identified a lot of other details too on port 80. So it executed a bunch of scripts there. So http robots.txt is a script, right? HTTP title is a script. HTTP server header is a script. So what I am doing here with locate command is to search all different scripts that are available with the Nmap installation by default. So let's filter these scripts with the help of grep. So using grep, you can search for a specific string. So I'm going to pipe this result onto grep and ask for only FTP related script. So these are all FTP scripts that you can get with the default installation. But if you can go on Google and search for scripts, if there is someone who wrote a few more Nmap scripts, you can get that. All these scripts are actually written in Lua language. So these scripts will give additional information for a specific service that you are targeting. So you can use this sys script to perform this script scan on the target. Of course, with Nmap aggressive scan, you are by default performing the script scan. So if I switch to my slide, Nmap aggressive scan performs the SYN scan, operating system detection, and the software detection, version detection, right? And it will perform SSL scan. If there are some SSL related certificate information, it displays that. NetBIOS related enumeration, right? Operating system related details will be displayed if the NetBIOS port is open. I mean, enum for Linux that you have learned from the previous module or the CEH course is part of this particular aggressive scan activities. And you can see the trace route also works and will give number of nodes that are there present between you and the target. So if I look at this result, this is SMB related scan result that actually provided the host related information, right? In fact, I'm not able to see that SMB result here clearly, but on Metasploitable 2, you can actually see. What is the reason? This SMB port, I mean 445 or 139 is not open on 141 mission. So SMB port is open only on Metasploitable 2 in my lab environment. So SMB related scans are performed on that mission, and it identified the actual computer name, domain that it belongs to, right? So you can see a lot of information related to the actual operating system with this SMB scan. So these are all additional advantages that we can have, but in case if you want these details, you can perform it with individual scripts also. This is very handy. Performing aggressive scan is not recommended all the time. Why? Because aggressive scan, you can see if one scan, or else let us do this experiment. How about opening Wireshark and checking how many probes are sent for one specific port scan? Let's see. So this kind of experimentation and research is very important, right? When you are learning things, especially in case of pen testing. So I hate this dark background because everything is going to look same. Let me run Wireshark as a root user. To see Wireshark in the white mode, I mean light background. So let's keep this script scan aside and do a basic one single port scan on the target and see what kind of result that we'll get. So nmap on 192.168.0.207, which is metasploitable 2, without any additional options like skipping ping or else name resolution. Let us see how many probes that it sends. So I'm going to scan only for port 22, right? So let us start the Wireshark sniffing. I hope you all know how to use Wireshark. I'm going to start the sniffing. And I'm going to apply a filter that will display only the packets that contain this IP address 207. In fact, you can also apply something called as capture filter that will capture the traffic only for that specific IP address, right? To do that, you can go back onto your Wireshark standard interface. This is the main panel where you can specify the capture filter. So host 192.168.0.207. So let's run the scan. This will only display the packets that contain 10207, right? So let's run the scan and see what are the probes that it sent. Only one port is scanned. Hello, are you observing how many probes that it sent? Exclude all ARP packets. Excluding ARP, there are so many packets that you are seeing as part of this conversation for one single port. Imagine how many probes you are going to send for 1,000 ports, right? So how many probes you are going to send if it is all 65,536 ports? So it is quite simple and easy for any kind of detection mechanism to trigger or suspect that there is something wrong. And if you carefully observe all the IP addresses that you are seeing here include the source and destination. Obviously, the source is nothing but the attacker's IP address who is going to send this in packets. So if I select this packet, you can see at first it actually performed the connection related detection. So it will not only do the ICMP scan, right, for detecting whether the port is open or not. I think you all know how nmap network scan works. So as all those things are already covered in CEH, I'm not going to bring them up back again, right, to bore you. But ICMP scan is not the only one that it performs. It actually sends a bunch of other packets to identify whether the host is up and running or not. So as part of this port 22 thing, you can see this is the TCP connect scan port. So or else let us filter TCP.port is equal to 22. So this is only for identifying whether the port 22 is open or not. You can see that 226 is the IP address that sent this in. So I'm not wrong, that is the IP address of my attacker device. So if the source IP address is constantly repeated, if the target 207 is receiving huge amount of SYN requests from the same IP address, it is obviously suspicious. So if a normal user is trying to connect, he cannot connect to all services at the same time. Only tool can do this job. So there can be a defense that can block all the tool related activities by simply putting a CAPTCHA or implementation or something else. So if that is the case, you will lose testing that particular target. Of course, as part of pen test, if you are not able to identify it, or else if the security measure is perfectly working, then it is really a good sign. But in reality, even when you are performing some kind of red teaming operations, you must be very careful. So that is the reason why performing aggressive scan can be dangerous. So what we do is a version detection scan. Why can't we run Wireshark in the background and see? So To understand what is going on, it is always good to run Wireshark in the background and analyze the traffic while you are performing all the operations. So let's pick this 192.168.0.100.207, right? And not ARP. I don't want to capture any kind of ARP packets. But let's move on to the target once again. And this time let's do port 21. So port 21, a version detection scan. Port 21 version detection scan. So in case of version detection scan, let me stop the scan. You can see it made a connection. It not simply identified the port whether it is open or not. Let's filter only the port tcp.port is equal to 21. If you carefully observe, there is, since in ACK, all the actual regular packets to identify it. Apart from that, it is also going to make a connection and see what is the version. So that particular connection made it identify what is the exact version of the software that is running on the target, which revealed the banner there. This is why changing banners is very, very, very important. Anyhow, version detection scan in this case directly identified what is the actual service running. But on our target before, it didn't identify it because the banner changed. Let's see what is the difference between this basic version detection scan and the script scan that we performed before with aggressive scan. So instead of doing it with all different ports and all different ports related aggressive version detection scan or script scan, I mean, instead of doing it with aggressive scan, how about choosing one specific script and running it? To do that, you can locate all the scripts that are related to FTP and pick what is the script that you are interested in. You can actually look at the information related to these scripts by simply using info command, right? But I'm going to copy this and run nmap, the same exact command that we executed before. So this time on port 21, because that is where the FTP service is running. To specify a single script, you need to use script option. Script followed by the actual script that you want to run. So let's run this particular scan and see what Wireshark can tell us. See, it made a series of connections to the target and see whether the anonymous login is allowed or not. And not only that, it is also doing a bunch of different activities in the background to identify the exact version of the software that is running here. Are you understanding, my dear friends? So in the previous case, there is only one single connection, but here there are a bunch of different activities that it did. Right? So we didn't executed any anonymous related script. Right? We didn't executed a non-script, but here you are seeing it tried connecting to the target using anonymous credentials, right? After logging in successfully, it made few more queries to identify what is the exact version. So you're not seeing anonymous related script, anonymous FTP anon script running in the scan, but still in the background, it is happening there. This is why using nmap, you need to be very careful, because more probes that you send, more alerts that you trigger, or more probes that you send may actually block you from not performing specific tasks and so on. To demonstrate the importance of nmap along with Wireshark, let's take a picture of some kind of defenses that are in place. In fact, when I go on this port, this mission with what is the IP address? So the one that I shared with you last week, which is HS box, and the one that we are using now, HSV box. So let's perform nmap scan, but this time, is it 141? Yes, 141 and 175. Let's do it on 175. So far, we actually identified only 2 ports that are open on this mission, right? And both are TCP ports. And what we saw is 22 and 80. Right? You can go in detail and write down all the specific versions of the software. We'll come back to this sheet in a short while. So when I execute this normal scan, I am able to see only 2 ports. But when I do all port scan, which is of 65,536 ports, I'm able to see yet another interesting port. In fact, as I told you, this particular port is not a common port. So Nmap is not able to guess what may be the service that is running. Can anyone tell me on how I can identify what is the exact version of the software running here?
Version scan.
Very good, very good. So you're correct. It is version detection scan that can help us know what is the exact version of software running. In the previous example, I told you like running all port scan can trigger alerts, but it is very important in few cases. Only all port scan can give you some entry points, especially in case of CTF kind of competitions that you participate in, right? You will see this kind of behavior. Not only that, even in the real life, administrators most of the times leave these services with the default ports, but at times they change these ports just for the conflicts that they face. Say, for example, port 80 is already occupied, but they want to run yet another web service, right? So they may choose some random port and host that particular web service there. We don't know what is the exact service that is running here. So to identify that, as you all mentioned, is version detection scan. Let's run the version detection scan and see what is the exact version of the port service that is running on that port 6880. Again, running all port scan this time is again a blunder mistake. Why? You already know that there are only 3 ports that are open. Why to run all port scan here? Anyhow, in this case, we may not take a lot of time, but in CPENT, the real life environment, or else even the CPENT exam, you will see that it takes hours long to complete this all port scan on the device because of lot of different defenses that are there in place, all different firewalls that it must cross before it reaches the actual device and so on. So it is always good to perform this version detection scan, right? Only after you identify what are the ports are open and specify those port numbers. So what is the actual thing that we do? At first, we'll perform all port scan. So let me note down the command like nmap. So we'll perform nmap. Oops. All port scan as the first thing. Oh. Right? And after completing this, port specific version detection scan or script scan is good. So in this case, we just identified port 22 and 80 as part of normal thing. But after doing this specific scan, I'm able to see 6880. Right? And we didn't perform any UDP scan. I can completely avoid this UDP scan or else do it later if I'm not able to find any entry points through this, or else if you want to go deeper and do additional things, right? So not always I will be doing this UDP scan, but at times the UDP scan is also important. I will show you the demonstration within a short time on other device where there are some UDP ports that are open and running. And the next scan that we did as part of the port identification is this version detection and script scan. So for this particular option, you can go with aggressive scan and specifying the ports. So in this case, there are 3 ports that are open. So 22, 80, and 6880 can be the options for me. Right? And obviously the IP address that we need to mention. And few common things that I already told you, you can simply add them, what is capital N, capital P, small n, and small n to actually skip the name resolution. So I hope you all are able to understand the story behind this and why we are running this. And immediately after completing the scans, it is always good to copy paste the results of those specific scans. So you can take a screenshot and put that screenshot over there, or else simply copy the results for the scans that you performed. Right? So right now the report may look not that eye-pleasing, but don't worry, at the end you can do a bunch of different things to make it look more clear and easy for everyone to understand. Right? So preparing this along the way makes your job very simple. Even in the exam, when you are performing the scan, I highly recommend you to note down all those things in while you are performing the task, because after completing it, we will not have a clear idea of what we did at that stage. So if we miss on adding any detail, then our report will not be considered as a valid report. So we identified 3 ports there, and now we can go back and fill up all our details here. So TCP ports, and this one is SSH, and this one is HTTP, and this one is FTP. So this is just a summary, but you can go and write the additional details as part of the next section. So this summary is going to give you a brief overview of what you have did on in that particular task. But if you want to go very specific and specify complete details, you can elaborate it after this summary section. So what I generally do is I'll write all the additional steps on what we did, how we identified, why we use those scripts, and so on. So it becomes a very detailed report, right? And there is no way that you are going to miss any kind of details that you have identified, and it becomes very easy for the exploitation. Trust me, as I'm showing you, we'll see how this information that I'm copying down right now will help me later in the actual process. Very good. We are done with this details. Let's do the same on some kind of defenses that are present on the server. So this machine is not firewalled, but 141 is actually firewalled. Right? How I know this? With a normal scan, you will not be able to know it. If I perform ping on 192.168.0.141, it is responding for ping, right? But carefully observe the result. There are only 3 ports in this result, right? But wait, I suspect there are even more ports that are open, which are not directly accessible because of some specific rules that block it from not getting displayed while you are performing a map scan. The immediate thing that you must do when you suspect that there is a firewall or there is something that you are missing from your result is to look at Wireshark. So the IP address of this machine is 141. So let's start Wireshark once again. And this time, let's do it on all the network and apply ip.addr is equal to 192.168.0.141. It means no matter either in the source section or destination section, if you see this IP address, display all those packets. And are you observing that? There are so many packets that are recorded. There is no activity that we are doing on that box, right? So I'm not doing any kind of scan. We already performed that scan. I started this Wireshark sniffing only after performing the scan. And there is no one who is accessing the web services that are running on this machine. The machine is completely idle, but still I am seeing a lot of traffic. Analyzing Wireshark traffic is the key. So let's see what is happening. But the easy process on how to analyze Wireshark traffic, because Wireshark looks very complex at the beginning stage. And most importantly, you will see thousands of packets within a very short time that you run Wireshark for. Are you observing the count at the bottom? It is increasing. So let me stop this Wireshark capture. And for a very short time that we executed or we sniffed the traffic, we saw somewhere around 38 to 43, right? 38,000 packets. So what is happening in the background? Let's check. So to simplify this job, I will tell you three things that you can check in Wireshark capture. So whatever Wireshark capture that you have access to, always take advantage of checking these three things. So first step is to look at IP address. So most of these IP addresses that you see here are not useful for us. We are actually looking at the conversations that are happening with 141 and our attacker device. Is there anywhere that this particular device is communicating with us, or else are we doing any kind of scan with that particular device? So even in the real life pen test, you know who is actual victim. You know on which device the actual attack was happened, right? Especially if you are into investigation team or incident response team, right? You already know these are the IP addresses which are victims, and these are the IP addresses you suspect that are the attackers, right? So filter this traffic based on the IP addresses. So instead of going with this generic statement to display all the packets that contain 141, right? I'm going to display only the packets that have IP address as 141, 192.168.0.141 and ampersand IP.addr either in the source or the destination. I also want to see 192.168.0. What is the attacker's IP address? In my case, it is 226. Very good. So now you have less amount of traffic to analyze, right? The first thing that I always do is to filter out IP addresses and only focus on the IPs that we are concerned about. Because in the background, you may be watching some kind of YouTube video, or you are doing some kind of task on a different website on your browser. Even those things will be recorded because you are selecting that interface. Everything that is passing through this interface, entering your mission or else leaving your device, right, will be recorded by Wireshark. So after this IP related thing, I will look at protocols. What are the major protocols that you are seeing? UDP, ICMP, TCP. That's it. There is nothing else. So I'm seeing a lot of TCP packets, UDP packets, and ICMP packets. Okay. I didn't set any kind of send any kind of ICMP packet to the target, but still I'm seeing ICMP packets. From where they are coming? So 226 to 141, there is destination unreachable, right? In fact, 226 is my IP address. My IP address is actually sending 141, right? Destination unreachable. It means target, 141 is doing something on my device, because of which my device responded with ICMP, port unreachable message, right? Okay. What is the purpose of this? We'll talk about that later. But for now, let's keep it aside. And other protocol related packets, UDP and TCP. Let's filter that. So let's go with UDP first. So UDP, ampersand UDP, you are seeing a lot of UDP packets. So the destination unreachable message ICMP thing is also listed as part of this UDP thing only. All right. What are the other UDP ports that you are seeing? So 141, which is the target, sending some UDP packet to 226, right? From which port? A random port on the target towards this particular device, port 2022. Okay, so there is some kind of connection or else some kind of message broadcast happening. So how to analyze? So select one of these UDP packets, right click, follow UDP stream. There is a message, knock thrice to unlock the door. So this is a kind of CTF box just to make you know different concepts. So this is a hint for you to open an interesting port. When I say interesting port, SSH is kind of interesting port for all of us. When we are performing some kind of pen test or performing some kind of connection towards the target server and so on. Even while performing advanced activities like pivoting or double pivoting, SSH port will help us a lot. Feeling like SSH can be opened if there is, if you knock for thrice. Anyhow, I don't want to keep it suspense for all of you. As you can see, there is a broadcast message. This is the message that is broadcasted by the target device telling that port 2022. So from a random port from the target to port 2022, it is sending this message. It means that you need to knock this port 2022 thrice to see that interesting port open. Very good. We made some kind of, we collected some kind of detail with this scan. Let's go back with the actual filter that we applied before. So this is the filter that we are using. Oops, I can close that and go back to the filter. So these are all UDP packets. Let's cut down this and remove this UDP. We are seeing some TCP packets also as part of this. Let's add ampersand TCP. We are seeing a lot of TCP packets. So target 141 is actually trying to make a connection towards 226, and this is a SYN packet. Hello, are you all understanding? The same exact scans that you did before, the Nmap. If you are thorough at using Nmap, trust me, everything that you are going on to the advanced section will be very easy. So now you know that TCP SYN scan is used for connection initiation, right? So SYN related packets are used for connection initiation. Who is initiating this connection? Which IP address is initiating this connection? Can anyone tell me? Hello?
141.
Very good. Very good. You are correct. It is 141 which is initiating this connection. So party who is sending SYN, right, is the one who is initiating the connection, right? Okay, 141 is trying to connect to 226. On which port? The third thing that you must check is the port number. Yes, someone is telling port number. Can anyone tell me what is the port number on which it is trying to connect?
23.
Pardon, once again.
1337.
Very good, very good. You're correct. It is 1337 on which it is trying to connect. All right, so if I try to open a listener on my machine, the chances are it can actually connect to my port and do whatever it want to do, right? Why we are seeing resets here? Because this 226 is not there with that port open, so it is sending reset. So what if we open that port? So I hope you all got the idea about three different things that you must do when you see a Wireshark capture. The first thing is IP address thing. The next thing is the port protocol, and third thing is port number. So cut short. You will have a lot of details if you can filter traffic based on these 3 points. You don't need to worry about huge amount of traffic that you are seeing. I will give you one more example once we proceed with that box and solve that box. So let us close Wireshark for now. And if I go back to my terminal and start a netcat listener. To start netcat listener, I'm using -L to listen, V for verbose, P for port number, and 1337 is the port where it is trying to connect. So let us open a port and see what happens. If the target is trying to connect to our mission, there we go. It actually displayed a banner or message and actually closed that connection. So if this port is not open here, our mission is going to send reset and close. So there can be some interesting tasks running on the target device. For example, if someone on the internet identified loophole on your server and planted a backdoor that constantly connects to anyone on a specific port, right, to give a reverse shell. Hello, are you understanding? If you can identify that with the analysis that you did, you can also get a reverse shell. No exploit used, nothing interesting done, but still I'm able to make a connection. I'm able to handle the connection from the target device. These are all things that you will not see with Nmap scans at all, because Nmap is only going to tell you whether the port is open or not. That's it. So port identification is different from the analysis tasks that you do. Analyzing traffic using Wireshark is key when you are part of internal pen test. So in case of external pen test, also you can perform this. You can see what are the things that the target is sending back when you are trying to communicate with it and so on. This is a simple demonstration that helps us in knowing this, but let's proceed further with the next thing that we must do on the target if you suspect that there is a firewall. Among all different Nmap scripts that we have seen before, there are specific firewall related scripts. So let us run the locate command once again to list all NSE scripts and grep for firewall. So there is firewall bypass script, right? So let's write fire. There are two different scripts, firewalk script and firewall bypass script. In fact, you can read information about this particular script by going on to info section or simply searching for this detail on Nmap official website. And for all these things, the resources are the standard Nmap website or standard websites, official websites. I always trust going on to the official website for more information. So nmap.org is the standard source, right? Every detail will be updated here, so you can go and search for the detail and get more information about it. So what is this firewall bypass.nse going to do? So I can simply paste it over here and search, and it will actually give you the information related to the script. What are the options that you can use, how you can go with the syntax, and so on. So nmap followed by script, nmap firewall bypass, how it works, it gives a detailed explanation for that, and so on. The next one that you are seeing is firewalk script. This is yet another interesting script that will take advantage of trace route scan to identify the ports that are open, but still Nmap can't identify directly. So if I go on this firewalk script, so it tries to discover firewall rules using IPTTL expiration technique. So it tries to send some ICMP packet with a customized TTL value, right, to count number of nodes that are there in between and see what kind of ports are responding back and what kind of ports are not responding back with the specific duration. It records all those times and then confirms whether the port is actually filtered, closed, or open. As I mentioned, I suspect that there is some firewall on this device. When we executed the previous scan, we are not able to see the interesting ports. Of course, with the Wireshark analysis, we got some hint telling that port 22 may be there or may not be there. So there is a message, a UDP broadcast message telling that knock thrice to open, to unlock the door and so on. So let's go and perform this nmap script scan with firewalk script. You can actually add tac script is equal to firewalk.nsc, or you can directly write script space firewalk.nsc, or you can simply write firewalk also. Anything is fine, right? So individual scans are very, very, very important. So trace route. So trace route followed by the target's IP address. 0.141 in our case. Again, you need to specify sudo to run this. You can jump to the root account and then perform all these tasks. Very good. Are you observing that? It is telling that port 22 is filtered. With the normal Nmap scan, I'm not able to see that this port is open or it is present, but this port is present. So firewalk scripts are very handy when you are doing external pen test, when you are trying to identify devices that are on the internet. All right. So not only this, you can also take advantage of yet another tool that comes pre-built with your Parrot or Kali, which is HPing3. I think you have used HPing3 as part of CEH module, where we perform some kind of DOS attack or something else with HPing3. HPing3 is very powerful utility. So let's take advantage of HPing3 to scan the same exact device, right? So you can look at the help manual of HPing3 to know more about how to use it. So HPing3 is like a packet crafting tool. So for Nmap, we have all the default options set. You can simply specify those options and then run the scan. You can't customize it according to your requirement. I mean, you can't design your own TCP packet. But with HPing3, you can do it. You can tell how many packets you want to send, what kind of mode to set. You can set it on UDP mode, ICMP mode, or scan mode, right? You can also take advantage of modifying the flag values. You can set whatever flag that you want to send. You can modify the data size and a lot more. So this HPing3 is very handy when you are part of internal pen test or else in the external pen test also. Why? Because when you gain access to the target mission, right? The target mission may not have Nmap installed. So you successfully managed to compromise one of the internal hosts, but as there is no Nmap, you can't perform any post-exploitation activity to identify what are the devices that are present on the target network and so on. Why? Because a simple ping will not work, because the internal device is not going to respond for ICMP. Nmap uses ARP protocol to detect it. So if Nmap is not installed, how to do it? Then HPing3 kind of utility is very handy. Why HPing3? Because HPing3 is a default utility on almost all Linux devices. Not only this, you can also use netcat for doing the port scan. I'll show you that in a short while. Let's do it with HPing3 first. HPing3, right, with -8 to set this on scan mode. As you can see here, to set this on scan mode, you need to use -8, and you can specify how many ports to scan. Capital S to specify the SYN packet that you want to send, what kind of packets you want to send. So SYN packet. So let's use -8. Let's scan ports between 20 and 80, because we feel like those are the ports that are open, right? So 20 to 80. Capital S. You can also leave it for all different ports. It is all your choice. I'm just cutting down the amount of time that it can take to complete the scan. That's it. So again, sudo. Very good. We can see that port 21, right, is open on the target device. And the next process, whenever it tried performing the same for the next port, it actually triggered some kind of buffer overflow. So buffer overflow triggered on the target. There can be n number of reasons on why this is happening. Maybe when it is trying to connect to that specific port, which is 22, it faced some kind of issue on identifying what is running there and so on, right? So for now, let's do it on 207 and see what happens. And see all different ports that it identified. So it displays what is the response. So SYN ACK is the response, and the TTL value is 64, which clearly indicates that it is some flavor of Linux and so on. So I hope you all are taking down these commands or noting these commands into your running notes. So just a quick revision of what we did so far. We performed basic Nmap scans. We have seen how we can take advantage of Nmap scripts and individual scripts. And we have also seen how to take advantage of firewall related scripts to identify or know the presence of any filtered ports that are present on the target. And the major thing that we did so far is to analyze Wireshark traffic. All right, let me show you how we can use Netcat for performing the same port scan. With Netcat, there is an option called option which is -Z that you can use to perform port scan. So I use Netcat, right, for starting a port, listen verbose on port. So let me show you two things that we can do with Netcat. So far we used it only as a listener, right? So Netcat -LVP, right, 3535. So let me start the listener on port 3535. Means this machine is listening on port 3535. What is the IP address of this machine? If I'm not wrong, it is 226. Let me bring my host machine terminal and try to connect to the target. So I'm trying to connect to the mission 2. What is the IP address? 226. Poor memory. Netcat 192.168.0.226. So 3535. Can anyone tell me what happened right now? After executing this command, what happened?
We have opened the port.
Very good. We made a successful connection with the target, right? And you can see that connection related information here. You can see there is a connection arrived from 177. What is that we can do with this? Hello. I can chat. Hi. So we can use Netcat for multiple purposes. This is a too good example to tell you how you can use Netcat for port scan, listening, or starting a service, how you can use it as a chat engine for file transfer and lot more. So during pen test, we use Netcat for file transfers too, because after compromising the target mission, right, we need to upload some executables there to run some post exploitation activities. Right? For example, you identified that the target is Linux and it is vulnerable for some kind of privilege escalation, and there is a kernel exploit available, but you can't download exploit onto the target machine because there is no internet connection. So this is quite common in any of the exam environments that you face. So you will not see that the target is connected to internet. You can't directly download exploit codes there. Or else the outbound rules or inbound rules that are written onto the firewall will restrict you from not uploading or else downloading some files from the internet. The only way is you need to upload the files. So what we are able to do now is simple chat. Let us take this to the next level. So my dear friends, it is time for us to provide you with the login details. So the default login details for HSV box, not for this one. Don't get confused, both are named very much similar, but HSV box default credentials, username is Muggle and the password is Muggle. From this point onwards, you can use this login to log into the device, because for certain demonstrations, it is very important for me.
Jain sir, this is for the second box, right? Not
Yes,
for the
second box, the one that we shared yesterday or so.
Fine.
Right. So this is the second box, HSV box. And this is the first one that I shared, which is just HS box. So after logging into this machine, I'm going to use netcat once again. But this time, I'm going to use a additional option with netcat, which is netcat-e option. So there are so many options for this. You can actually go onto the man page for netcat to see all these options. So one purpose that we have seen for netcat is connecting and using it as a chat engine. But now let me go and start the listener once again on the same device 226. But this time I'm going to connect to the target device using -e option, or else let's put all the details 192.160.226 on port 3535. This will connect and give us a normal interaction, right? What if I want to go and give the shell towards the target? I mean, let's see what happens if I run bin bash, right? So can anyone expect on what may have happened right now?
It might give you interactive shell.
Very good. If I do ID, right? This is not a normal chat engine. This is an interactive shell. Of course, it is non-interactive shell. You can make it interactive with the help of a simple Python command, or else simply asking for interactive bash. We'll see on how we can make it more interactive in the next upcoming practicals, where we see some privilege escalation and all. But for now, let us keep it simple. This is a basic shell. Who knows? There can be a backdoor like this on the target mission. If you're not enumerating perfect, this is you are going to lose easy way gaining access to the target device. This is what I was telling at the beginning point of today's session. Every time we'll feel like there must be an exploit and we use that exploit to gain access. Hello, it is not always possible. But misconfigurations are possible because those are human mistakes. As an administrator, I'll have thousands of machines to administrate. One or two services that I've started for some specific purpose, I may forget to shut down those services later. That act as an entry point for an attacker. So as a penetration tester, it is your job to identify those things and then fix them. So this is a basic shell that we got access to. Now let us see the third thing with netcat. I'm going to use netcat now for performing port scanning. So somehow you gained access to this device and you don't know how many missions are there part of the target network, or else let us see. Let us go with the previous command. Somehow you gained access to this box. So let us imagine that this is what the access that you have onto this box. And imagine that this is a front-facing server.
HSV box, can you just make it big?
Which one?
Maximize it.
This box?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right. I think now you all are able to see the command. So it is netcat with -e bin bash. So somehow you gained access to this box, right? So let us imagine that this is a front-facing server, right? After your enumeration, you identified that this is a front-facing server and you gained access to it. After gaining access to this device, you want to identify what are the devices that are part of the internal network, because this particular server is connected to the internal network, right? So in the real life scenario, it may or may not be, but let us imagine that you compromised a server that have a connection towards the internal network. So if that is the case, there may not be a possibility for us to run nmap scan. Why? If I check nmap, so this is the shell from the target device, right? Sorry, ID, shell from the target device. I can simply run ifconfig to see what are the interfaces that are present. So I gained access to 141 this time. If I check nmap or if I run nmap, I'm not able to see any kind of response. it means Nmap is not installed. Now, how to perform the post exploitation or else scan the network from here on? That is where netcat can be helpful, because netcat is a default one using which we got access. So most of these servers, I mean, most of the Linux flavors come with netcat by default, right? So that is why we keep it bare minimum to see what kind of basic utilities that we can use for exploitation during our pen test, right? Anyhow, you can actually transfer your Nmap executable onto the target and execute it, but who knows? There can be restriction on the firewall that will block you from not transferring this kind of executables. These are all possibilities, right? So that is why in case of external pen test, we must always take care of looking for minimum to minimum or else the basic tools that come with operating systems as our actual tools to do any kind of task. So -v option will actually help us in giving the verbose result. I think it is small v. And n option to cut down the name resolution, same as what we use for Nmap. And -z is used for port scan. So after -z, you can specify the IP address and port numbers that you want to scan. Say, for example, from here on this particular, from this particular device to 175, because that is also part of the same network, right? So I'm gonna perform the scan on from 21, 22, 80. If there are certain ports that are open, we will be able to see the results. Hoping for the best, but there is no response. There is no response. Please note down this point. When we gained access to the target device, as we are part of external pen test, we somehow gained access to the internal device. But when we are trying to perform some tasks on that particular shell, we are not able to do it. The major reason is the shell that you have. It is bare minimum, not capable of executing interactive commands. And of course, the netcat command that we have executed right now is not there with any kind of interaction. Is it 175? Yes, 175. We must be able to execute it, but still we are not able to do it. But the results that you are seeing are appearing on the target here, not on your computer. Attacker who gained access is not able to see the result, but these results are appearing on the target device. This is where tunneling or any kind of post-exploitation concepts that we will be discussing in tomorrow's session will help. But for now, let us keep it very simple, right? That is the reason why I don't want to upgrade the shell too and also show you all these activities. We'll do that later in tomorrow's session because I'm thinking that we are pushing a lot of things today. So if I complex the session today, I don't think you people will turn for tomorrow's session. Yes or no? And before we proceed, I just want to confirm this once again. My dear friends, please take down the command. Anyhow, I've showed you an example of how this netcat is really helpful when you are performing port scan and in which situation, right? So if I run the netcat again here, right, it will be fine. So there will not be any kind of issue that I can face because I'm directly communicating with the target server. So 175 from port 20 to 80, I will be able to see all the results. But my intention is to tell you what happens in external pen testing, right? So once we gain access to one of the devices, right, using this tool will come handy. Of course, please note down all these points because you may not see all these scenarios in the material. But for sure, you will have all these commands in the material. You will see netcat command, how to write a script with netcat and so on. But my job here is to give you all the scenarios so that you can understand what is the purpose of the task that we are performing. All right, my dear friends, is everything clear up until now? I hope I'm not complexing the things. Please drop your feedback. So is it easy to understand? Is it moderate, or else is it complex? So 1 in the chat if you feel it easy, 2 in the chat if you feel it moderate, 3 in the chat if you feel it complex. So based on that, I can take a turn. Very good, very good. I can see that all of you are feeling it moderate. Great.
You are feeling complex.
Feeling complex, please let me know where you feel the complexity so that I can help you. Right?
Afzal is telling super complex.
Which one?
Afzal, what is super complex?
Which one is super complex?
Yeah, I don't. The last part.
The netcat thing. Okay, don't worry. Tomorrow we'll see perfect demonstrations for that so that it will be easy, right? So I just wanted you to know where to use netcat. That's it. That is the reason why I gained access and then executed that there. But we are still there at the initial point doing all the enumeration only. We didn't did any kind of exploitation so far. Of course, I showed you the purpose of netcat, so we got the reverse connection. Tomorrow we'll go with a proper plan as part of the tunneling concept. So there you can easily understand. So for now you can avoid that last portion. But apart from that last portion, all other things are simple, I think.
Yep.
Very good. So let's move on to the next thing, next service that we always target, which is FTP. No matter what kind of server it is, which is exposed to the internet from within the organization, or else if it is hosted on the internet, you will commonly see this port 21 open, right? So let us go on cbit.ac.in and see if these ports are open or not. So these are all just examples. I don't recommend you doing these scans on those missions at all, right? It is completely legal. So this is just for the demonstration. So port 80 and port 443 are the only ones that are open. Oh, previously they used to have this 21 and also 3306 open. Whew. Let's go with some other examples. Me c.ac.in. If people keep on fixing this, how can I demonstrate? How can I let people know that yes, you can see these kind of services on the internet for sure? Are you observing that it is taking more time? This can give you an idea that there can be some kind of difference. It can be host-based firewall, or it can be network-based firewall, or web application-related firewall, right? So it is taking a lot of time. So let's do a faster scan by skipping the ping. So capital F is for fast scan. Don't get confused between capital F and smallest capital F. So smallest capital F is a fin scan, and capital F is fast scan, which scans only 100 ports. Capital F is for scanning 100 ports. Without any kind of port specification, it is common 1000 ports, and with some kind of port specification, it scans only those specific ports. And if you want to scan all 65,536 ports, then -p-. So knowingly or unknowingly, if you are executing all these commands, it can go wrong, right? That is why understanding what we are doing before you execute any command is very important. As we are not script kiddies, we are professional penetration testers. All right. Moving on to the result, we saw all 1000 ports are closed. Chalo, no problem. Let me go on showdown.io. To prove that a lot of servers out there will have FTP port open. That too running VSFTPD, right? You already know that VSFTPD 2.3.4 is vulnerable, right? So let's see how many servers out there on the internet are running VSFTPD 2.3.4. I think we already did that in the last session. I exceeded the actual limit. Anyhow, we can see that there are a lot of different servers out there with FTP port open. right? So after performing the basic Nmap scans and understanding whether there is a firewall or not, the next thing is to target these common ports. FTP port is your prime target. So if FTP anonymous is allowed, then you are really lucky, right? Not because that is going to become a triggering point, but this FTP anonymous login may have some restrictions where you are not allowed to upload files, download files, or something else. But at times, the FTP anonymous login that you gained access to will give you access to a directory that holds some sensitive information. Why FTP services are really opened all the time? Because it can be a web server where the administrator actually gains access to the web server through this FTP port to upload some files onto the web server or do some kind of modification remotely. That is the reason why FTP becomes one of the prime targets. So if I take advantage of running this on our targets, so on desktop, we have targets.txt. And there I'm going to run 21 aggressive scan, or you can also do version detection and script scan. So there is a difference. So script scan will actually select safe scripts and run only those scripts, right? Say to show you this, if I go back to the same search, locating all NSE scripts and display everything related to FTP. So there are so many scripts available, but it is going to run only 2 scripts here, which we have already seen before with aggressive scan. It executes this script to know what is the exact version of the software, and it also executes FTP anon script. Only 2 scripts will be executed. So the default script option that you see, smallest capital C, is going to do the same. It is going to select only specific scripts and run those scripts on the target. So put 21, run version detection and also script scan on all 3 devices and see what is present. So for VSFTPD, I mean Metasploitable 2, right? We have VSFTPD 2.3.4, anonymous FTP allowed. And even for this box 141, we are able to see that port 21 is open and anonymous FTP is allowed. And there is a file. And for this one, we are not seeing that FTP thing. Why? Because FTP service is actually running on the port 6880 on the target, right? So let's perform this port specific scan on 192.168.0.175. Why is it taking a long time? Is it 175? Yes, 175. It must not take a long time. Host is up, but still not running. Chalo, let it run. And in the meanwhile, let us check these 2 ports. So connecting to this FTP port and retrieving information that is present on that FTP port is our regular job. So FTP 192.160.0.207. As anonymous FTP is allowed, you can log in as anonymous user with blank password. Login successful, right? So you can list what are the files or directories that are present. As part of 207, we don't have anything, right? If I run pwd, you can see where are we right now. We are there on the main root directory. This is yet another misconfiguration, right? Of course, we may or may not have possibility to move around. For example, this is not an SSH shell. This is not a normal terminal that you are seeing. It is FTP prompt. So you can run only FTP commands. So if I run a question mark or type question mark or write help, I will get list of commands that I can use at this particular prompt. So let us do CD to home, which is home location of all other users. Are you observing that? We failed. We are not able to move. You are restricted to this specific directory and there is nothing inside the directory. Is there a possibility for us to put a file? Let's see if we can do it or not, right? So these are the checks that we must make. So connecting to anonymous FTP, identifying anonymous FTP, connecting to anonymous FTP and seeing what are the permissions that we have. I mean, can we move around the file system or can we put files or download files from the target machine or not? So right now I am somewhere in this location where yes, I am there at my home location. Let's see what are the files that are present, right? I'm going to open. There are a lot of different files that are present. Let us put this command.txt file onto the target. So using FTP to put couldn't create this file. So you're not having permissions to put the file. So these are the things that you need to check in case of FTP port that is open. Please note down these points because later we'll see on what kind of things that we can do as part of this FTP port, right? From where we got this FTP port running on 6880 because we performed Nmap scan on the target, all port scan on this target. There we found that it is running FTP on 6880.
So just a question here. So we'll not be able to upload on /home, but we'll be able to upload the files, right? There.
Yes, that also depends on the permissions that the administrator set. So even if you are given permission to, or else if the FTP home is set in some other location, right? You can restrict the users on what they can do in that directory. I may provide them right permissions, or else I may stop them from not writing anything into that directory. Got it?
Yeah, I think you were trying to change directory to /home, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say, if you can you do a
Is CD home?
Yeah. No, CD
No.
home will not work because it might be ch rooted. So
Yes.
you know, it will not be the actual root.
Temp.
Yeah. If you try ls there.
LS, nothing there.
Okay, can you can you try put something there?
That is what we did here, right? So putting command.txt file that is present on my home location, even that thing didn't work.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So you can restrict users from not allowing them to do all this tasks. So I'm taking all three examples right now to show you how it can differ. Right now on this Metasploitable 2 device, we gained access to anonymous login, but we are not able to do anything over there. But now let's move on to the other target that we have. So we have 175 with 6880 port as FTP port. And you can also see script scan is too good to tell you that there is a file, right, with read permissions for everyone, right? Means you can download this particular capture file, a pcap file. So let's note down this point in our cheat. So 6880 is there with a specific file in it. So with service enumeration, we identified that port 6880, right, have anonymous FTP login. and there is a file with these permissions. We are still there at service enumeration. That's it. We have a lot of things to cover, right? Anyhow, we reached it. We reached this particular point. So let's see what we can do. Connecting to that FTP port 192.168.0.6880. Sorry, 175.6.880. Right? And as anonymous FTP is allowed, you can use anonymous username and blank password, or you can also use FTP username and FTP as password. Anything is fine, right? When I do ls, this time I'm able to list files because listing permissions are given. You can actually look into the content that is present. So as anonymous user, right, you have that permission. Will I be able to put file which is cmd.txt which is present on my host machine? No, permission denied. You're not allowed. Anyhow, we have access to this particular file. How about downloading this file? So let's do it on the desktop so it will be easy for us. Right? ls, there is only target.txt. Let's connect to that FTP port. FTP login, FTP as password. ls, we have that file. I'm going to run get command to get this file, and I'm able to download that file. This is very critical service because most of the times administrators will put some kind of credentials, right, or some important notes, right, and they want someone else to download it, maybe their team members or something else. But while you are performing the attack, the attackers, when they are enumerating, if they find this, then they can also get access to it. So instead of doing this, you can restrict all this access only for a specific user. So anonymous functionality that you have enabled may have some purpose for you, but every service that you enable must be properly configured. All right, let's look at this 141 and see what we can do there. The same FTP command 192.168.0.141. I'm not going to specify any port number in this case because that particular file, I mean, the target mission is running port FTP on port 21. So FTP with blank password will also work. And I have buckbeak. I don't know what this file is because there is no extension. Let's see if we can download this file. Oops. Get this file onto my desktop. So buckbeak onto my desktop. Is this the correct way to specify? I'm not sure. This is why I always move onto my desktop and do operation there. If I want it there. FTP. And if I run get buckbeak, okay, it is an image file, as you can see on my desktop. So whatever file that you are seeing, you may use it later, or in what way it works, that is a different story. But we are there at the pre-exploitation stage. We are just collecting whatever that comes on our way, right? So let us talk about one last service before we break for 15 minutes. All right. So are you all ready? Can we move on to the next one? If yes, please drop N in the chat. Very good. So let's move on to the next task. So the next service that I always wanted to trigger is finger service. So finger service will actually help us in knowing who are the users who logged into the target server, right? For example, if I perform nmap port scan on port 17.9 for smec.ac.in, previously this port used to be there, but I don't know whether it is now present or not. Let's see if I can access smec.ac.in. Is that server down? Yes, I think the server down. How about iare.ac.in? Let's see if this finger service is running there or not. So nmap iare.ac.in, and also trying to skip the ping and see if the port is open or not. Yes, it is filtered, means it is, I think it is there. I can actually use finger command, right, on my Kali Linux or Parrot and specify the target details iare.ac.in, right? If I'm able to connect to that port, I will be able to see who actually logged into the target server. So as the port is filtered, I'm not able to make actual connection to the target server. But if I can connect to the target server, I can actually know what is the service, who is the user who actually logged into the target server. So for you, don't need to worry, because there is a target in the iLabs platform where you can connect and make this particular practical or do this particular practical. Okay. So take down the command. It is finger command followed by @ and target detail, target IP address or the domain name. Let's see if our Metasploit able to have this finger port open. .192.168.0.207. No, this port is closed. This is not usual, but if it is open, you can get information related to the currently logged in users. So very critical piece of information that can help you a lot. All right. Very good. Okay, then it's time for us to break for 15 minutes and we'll see you all, or else can we make it 10 minutes? Hello? Or 15 minutes? So how many of you say 10? How many of you say 15? Drop your opinion in the chat. All right, it is 15. Okay, fine. All right, then let's break for 15 minutes and we'll see you all after break.
Nishant sir, you're there. Nishant. Sorry, Jayant.
Yes, hello.
Sorry, I wrongly pronounced your name.
No problem, no problem, no problem.
Sir, after capturing the first flag, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
kind of a number. What is it? The number? I'm not
That number is just
to
a
decode it.
It is just a proof. That's it. You no need to decode.
Okay. And you told another flag, right? Under root. Is it there or should we take that also?
So there are 3 flags on this HS box. I think you collected the first one.
Okay. There is no link between first 2, 3, right?
No. But the third one you can only capture if you compromise the root account. Means you must do privilege escalation to have the third one. And
I got a meterpreter.
okay, without meterpreter also you can do privilege escalation. See what are the rights that are present.
No, I first exploited the website.
Okay,
And,
okay. All right. You got the first access, right?
Then the first one, default username password.
Okay. All right.
I got with vulnerability, I use a meterpreter to interrupt the session. Then I
Yes.
got the first flag.
Okay.
Now,
So there, let me give you a hint.
so I just want.
The
Yeah, please go.
other flag is in the next user's account.
Understood. Okay.
Okay. How to gain access to that user account?
Access is restricted.
Access is restricted, so you need to do some kind of horizontal privilege escalation.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'll show you the process. So there is some kind of misconfiguration that you can utilize to elevate your privileges to that user and access the flag that is placed under that user's account.
Sure.
And the shortcut way is if
No,
you
that
can
was my
elevate.
intent, but
Yes. Can.
I was thinking like usually the flag one will give a lead to the second one. So I was just taking and thinking, what is this number? Even if it is not base 64, then how do I decode an
No. There is nothing, no significance for that flag content. It is just a proof that you got access. So in CTFs, this is very common. You will see a link between the first flag and second flag and so on. But in generic pen testing related challenges, you will not see this linking.
Sure, James. I think that will really help me stuck in that particular area.
Yes.
I was not able to correlate with that one.
But I think you can elevate it to root easily. See if you can.
I have access.
You got root access?
No, not root access. With a meterpreter, I was able to get shell, but I'm not gaining the topmost privilege of that system.
No problem. See how you can actually compromise that user or else look for other files. So you successfully did the exploitation part. You need to spend time on post exploitation now. See if you can find some kind of way to elevate privileges. What are the permissions that the current user have? So there are some shortcuts that you can take. So anyhow, today I'll cover that remaining part too, right? So after break, we'll do the same.
Okay, no problem. Sure. I just wanted
To know about that
stuck
flag,
in the
right?
flag one.
Yes. There is no link
Yeah.
between that flag and other tasks.
Sure. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, I hope all of you are here. If yes, please drop back in the chat so that we can continue. All right, so let's move on. Everyone here? Yeah. Yes. All right, let's move on. So with this thing said, let me cover one last topic as part of this external pen test, and we'll directly jump on to vulnerability identification, which is common for both internal and external pen testing. So the one last thing that I want to tell is the SSH port knocking thing. Of course, this is not actually part of the syllabus, CPENT syllabus, but which we commonly see, right, in few real life pen testing environments. So when we performed the actual port scan on this box 141, we are not able to see that port 22 open, right? But with Firewalk script, we identified that it is filtered. And in the Nmap related capture, we got a hint telling that we need to knock the port thrice to open. Which port to knock? In the actual capture, we saw that port 2022. So let's rerun the scan on 192.168.0.141. Not able to see that port. But now let's go with netcat to knock the port. Means trying to make a connection to that port 2022. This is not very realistic. In the real life scenario, the administrators will share these details with authorized people. Anyone who is authorized know what are the series of ports to knock and in which order. So only if you knock those ports in that specific order, you will be able to see the port and have access to it. And again, knocking this in the reverse order or so, right, based on how the configuration is done, right, you can close that port. This is much secure way than leaving this SSH port open for everyone to access. Again, you can put n number of restrictions, not allowing login, ID and password based login, using only key based authentication to log into the target service, and a lot of other measures on who can access this service from which network and so on. To guard against brute forcing attempts, because SSH or FTP or RDP ports that are generally open for public are prime targets for brute forcing. You can put number of restrictions for SSH or all these RDP or FTP, allowing only specific amount of connections, right, to be made, or allow or block users based on how many attempts that they are making. All right. So give me a second. All right, I'm back. My dear friends, can we continue? If yes, please drop 1 in the chat. All right, sorry for the interrupt. Let's move on. So apart from these services, there are few other services that we'll always enumerate. RDP, right? Or SMB or some kind of network shares that are open. We'll see how we can enumerate them as part of internal pen test. But for now, let's proceed with the actual vulnerability identification step. What we did so far is just basic enumeration, knowing what ports are open, what services are running. Let's dig a little bit deeper about vulnerability identification or service related identification. I've told you that running a basic version detection scan may not give us the exact version of the software. Until and unless we identify the exact version of software, we will not be able to proceed with any kind of exploitation. This is the same exact thing that may have troubled you on solving this particular box, which is 175. So let's cut down this particular mission.
So we don't see your screen. So
Not able to see my mission. Okay. Sorry. Now?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Yes. Thanks for letting me know. And now let us cut down that all other boxes and only focus on this one specific device to identify vulnerabilities and take advantage of exploiting them. So please note that we are going with that process of pre-exploitation, right? In the previous steps, I mean before break. Now we are getting onto the advanced level steps of pre-exploitation. Only after identifying the right vulnerabilities will proceed with exploitation and post-exploitation. Let's take advantage of rerunning all the scans once again on this device and see what are all other things that we can find. So I'm going to run a quick aggressive scan on 192 or something else, or else let me give you the final shortcut like nmap with -p- on 192.168.0.175 is the first thing that we'll run. Once we identify what are the ports that are open, then we'll run a port specific 22.80.6.880 port specific version detection and script scan, or you can replace these two options with aggressive scan. It is your choice because both are going to do the same kind of job. So aggressive scan is a combination of version detection, script scan, and also the trace route scan. If you are doing only version detection and script, you will not get the idea of how many nodes that are present between you and the target device. Like trace route thing is not performed, or SMB additional scans are not performed, right? So you can go with this script scan and version detection scan. So we are done up until this particular point. So now it is time for us to enumerate even further to identify the exact vulnerabilities. This step is a little bit tricky and takes a lot of time, consumes a lot of time, based on what kind of vulnerabilities you are trying to exploit. Do remember the point that I've raised at the beginning stage when we are enumerating FTP service. So version detection scan, right, didn't give us a clear idea of what is the exact version of software that is running on the target mission. But with a specific script scan, I'm able to know what is the exact version of the software. So we got the result for 3 ports. And in this case, 22 is not that interesting because OpenSSH 6.6.1, it may have some kind of local exploits, but not going to help us a lot for remote exploitation, right? So if we have credentials, then there is a chance that we can log in. You can try with the default credentials like admin, because SSH is not configured with some default credentials. It is not going to be a hit for us. So we are going to keep this thing aside, but 80 is looking very promising because there are so many things running on port 80. And obviously 6880, which we already got access to, and we saw that it is VSFTPD 2.3.02. Let's note all these findings, right, as part of our report. So we identified that VSFTPD, or you can go and add more details to the scan of versions. So OpenSSH version we identified, but it is not that vulnerable. But something that is very interesting is VSFTPD detail. So we can note down this detail. Apart from that, we are able to see Apache 2.4.7. Again, don't always take the information that is available on the mission directly. Always do your homework. I mean, applying multiple techniques and then coming to a conclusion. So if I go on 192.168.0.107, sorry, 175. Very good. Vapalizer is also telling that it is Apache 2.4.7. We saw this. And PHP 5.5.9. So let's note down. Right, we got these three pieces from Vapalizer. Apart from that, yet another crucial piece is this content management system. Please note that content management systems are always going to help us a lot in exploitation step, because most of the content management system softwares have vulnerabilities, core vulnerabilities, or vulnerabilities because of some plugin or theme and so on. Drupal 7 is not the latest one, and obviously there can be some vulnerabilities with Drupal 7. So I'm going to note down that detail also. Right. So this brief information onto my version details, version enumeration. Right. So next step is all about vulnerability identification. You may get some exploits that are part of Metasploit, and at times you will see that the vulnerability that you identified may not have exploits that are part of Metasploit. Let me take you through common techniques that you can use for performing vulnerability identification. Obviously, you can make use of vulnerability scanners. I think you already use this vulnerability scanner. May I know what is the vulnerability scanner that you've used as part of CEH? Is it OpenVAS or Nessus? I think Nessus will be demonstrated in CEH. Yes, you can actually take advantage of Nessus, or you can also use OpenVAS or any other vulnerability scanner that your organization is using. That will simply automate the entire process of what we performed so far. I mean, it performs network it will perform network identification, service identification, port identification, version and vulnerability identification and all. It will automate the process, but Nmap script scan is the second alternate. So one thing that you can do is to use Nessus or OpenVAS. There is one practical that is part of iLabs, which I'm going to leave it for you to practice. So there is OpenVAS already installed on the iLab platform. There you can perform it. But for now, let me show you the Nmap related vulnerability identification scripts. There is one good script that is already part of your Nmap installation, which is vulners script. You can search for the vulner script, again the same command, grep for vulners. So these are the scripts that I was talking about. So Ligon is yet another vulnerability scanner, right, which also uses the vulners script, but what we are looking for is this Nmap related script located in user share Nmap scripts location. So let us perform this vulners scan on the target. So nmap tac script and specify vulner script. When you are doing a vulner scan, it is very important to specify version detection option. because version detection will enable this Nmap to identify the version of the service that is running on the port and then take advantage of using vulner script to connect to the standard databases, vulnerability databases like NVD or CVE related databases to grab all that vulnerability related information. So finally, we are going to specify the IP address of our target. So 141, just to cut down the time, I'm going to add the ports that we have identified, which is 21. So is it port 21? No, 22, 80, and 6880. I'm going to skip ping and also name resolution because we are doing it on the target IP address. So in this case, I'm not able to make my script run on the target and identify vulnerabilities. So let's use script is equal to, not working, why so? Not able to find it. It is 175, sorry. I'm doing it on 141, no, 175. Again, I'm not able to see any kind of specific vulnerability related information associated with this, right? So let's take advantage of running this on our Metasploitable 2 device and see will I be able to run this vulner script there or not? Because this vulner script is actually going to take advantage of version of the software and then identify if there are some kind of vulnerabilities or CVEs associated with it, right? If it is not able to identify any kind of specific version related vulnerabilities, you will not be able to see any kind of result. I think now it is working. Let's wait and see. And let's run the scan on Metasploitable 2 also in parallel. It is 207. New tab. The same exact command. I'm lazy enough, so let me copy paste. (192.168.0.207), right? And again, skipping the ping and name resolution, you will see that it takes a lot of time because it tries to identify all those services and version related CVEs, right? I think previously my network was down. That is the reason why I didn't identify it. But now you can see port 22, right? These are all CVEs that are associated with it. Manually identifying the version related vulnerabilities is time consuming and may not be that accurate all the time. For example, if I can copy this version information, go on Google, search for it, I can get a lot of details. So NVD had a lot of information related to different vulnerabilities that this version of SSH is associated with. You need to read and see what kind of vulnerability it is. So not all vulnerabilities are going to give us remote access, right? So if you carefully observe, the first one is in the OpenSSH version before 8.9. There is some authentication related vulnerability, right? Which can bypass authentication to give you access. It is not that serious, low level vulnerability. The next one that you see is a privilege escalation related vulnerability. Reading through each and every CV here, right, is quite time consuming. That is why running this kind of vulner script can give us or can make this job very simple. Let me drop this command in the chat. Vulners is a default script that is present as part of your Nmap installation. Now your job is simple. You can copy the CVE, go on to that and check what is associated with it, right? So this is the information that you can see for all different services. So I think these are all for HTTP. So it can be because of Linux. I mean, it can be because of PHP, or it can be because of Apache, or it can be because of content management system. In general, we'll not see content management related vulnerabilities as part of this vulnerability script. So we must use some CMS specific scanners to see that information. But having this vulnerability information in hand, you need to go on Google and hunt for what kind of vulnerability it is, more information about this vulnerability, and so on. So this is a HTTP server allows attacker to overwrite heap memory, right? Which possibly attacker provides data. The issue is with this versions of Apache. You can see on what kind of exploits are available for this one and what are the fixes. Copying these details will help us a lot even while preparing our report. So CVE website is too good because you can go on the search section and search for a specific version detail and get exploit related information associated with it. For example, I can go and search for VSFTPD 2.3.4 and know what are the CVEs that are associated with it, right? And read more information related to it, what it is doing and what other exploits actually perform, right? So these are all things that you can do with the CVE information that you have in hand. So once you have version information, this is what we can do. Now you can proceed further by simply taking advantage of version details from the web Vapalizer or any other enumeration technique that we have applied so far, right? So can pick this and run the scan, but let me keep this thing aside. And this one is for metasploitable too. See, there is so much information on the screen for you, right? To enumerate further. Now, on the target box, which is 141 or 175, we saw a default login page. This is Drupal's default login page. How I know that this is Drupal? Vapalizer is telling that, and also powered by Drupal. And this is a default page which must be customized by the actual administrator, right, to have the web application running. For example, if I go on UPSC website, upsc.gov.in, this is the official website of UPSC. And if I look at Vapalizer, hello, Drupal 7, right? This is how they must customize and add their own page here. All right. But in this case, they are less worried or less bothered about modifying it. Anyhow, this is intentionally made vulnerable mission. You can actually see the login form. So you can think about SQL injection or some kind of attack there. Right. But let us do a little bit of information gathering using two techniques that I've written in my cheat, exploit DB or Metasploit. So let's go on Google and search for vulnerabilities that are associated with this content management system. Drupal 7 exploits. There is so much information related to Drupal 7. Right? In fact, this is very popular vulnerability that was exploited, right, back in 2018 and 2019. Even the latest versions of Drupal are actually vulnerable, 8 and 9, right? So Drupal 8 is also vulnerable. You can see tons of articles related to it, but one standard resource is exploit DB, where you can search for exploits. So Offensive Security's actual exploit database that holds all those exploits which are not present in Metasploit also. Right? Takes a little bit more time to load. There we go. And when we search for Drupal 7, we see multiple exploits related to Drupal 7. We don't know what is the exact version of Drupal 7 that is present here. In fact, you can do a little bit of enumeration by simply searching some specific directories, because some common directories that are present in the default installation can reveal what is the exact version of the software. For example, if I go on view page source and see if I can find some version information. So I'm not able to see the exact version information, but you can actually check that it is Drupal 7. So I just know that it is Drupal 7, but I don't know what is the exact version of Drupal 7. No information here, right? So we just have that it is Drupal 7. That's it, nothing much. So this is where you must take advantage of frameworks that are very specific to content management system. So three most popular content management systems are Drupal, WordPress, and Joomla. If you are there with a WordPress application, then you can actually use WP Scan. We'll see how to use WP Scan in the upcoming module, web application module. There is WordPress application also installed on the HSV box that I have shared. So we'll see on how we can exploit it, what are the other things that you can do, how to get a reverse shell, and tons of interesting things in web application chapter. But for now, for performing this Drupal related scan, you can make use of Droop Scan. Take down Drupal Scan GitHub. So GitHub is a standard source for all different tools that you need. So Droop Scan will help us in scanning vulnerabilities associated with this Drupal version running on the target. And this can help you know what is the exact version of Drupal, and will also know what are the plugins that are installed. Most of the times these plugins that are installed can be vulnerable for local file inclusion, remote code execution, can be any vulnerability that is associated with it, right? So you can take advantage of installing this Droop Scan by simply cloning this, copy, and git space, clone space, Droop Scan, and you can get the instructions, installation instructions too. So you can go on to the Droop Scan directory and run pip install requirements. So let's move on to the Droop Scan directory. We have requirements. It must not take much time. So let's see if we can complete it. So one point I highly recommend you to note down into your running notes. My dear friends, using tools, you can actually automate the process and make the actual execution simple, right? So let me run Droop Scan and see if I can. This one is a Python tool, I think. Again, we need to fix all the issues that are there with this Droop Scan. Let's see if I can run. No, I think I need to set up the Droop Scan first. So you can read the instructions that are present here. Set up the Droop Scan.
Maybe because of privilege, you might have not able to.
Is it because of privilege? Okay, let's see. Whoa, 1 second. Let me do it. So if I go on sudo /Drupal scan, No. Mostly because of modules that are missing.
Maybe during installation, you have to use sudo.
Okay, maybe that can be the reason. So we saw a few errors while doing the installation too. Again, there are a lot of errors and warnings. Yes, there are a lot of different packages missing. We need to look into the error message and then see what we can do to fix them. Or else you can also go with the installation instructions that are present here to install it right from the repositories. Right, so I think I need to have Python pip, I think pip 3 or pip 2. So by default, I have pip 3, I think. So pip version, it is 22.1.2. I think I need pip 3 for installation. Right, there can be a number of dependencies that are missing. All right, we'll check that. But I hope you all got the process, right? So we need to check what are the dependencies that are missing, and we need to install them to use all these packages. So this is quite common with all different tools that are not present as part of Parrot or Kali, right? So in case of Joomla, you can use Zoom Scan, that is present as part of Kali. Right, WP scan and Zoom scan are actually default on Kali, but Droop scan is not default because of this reason only. Because the packages that this Droop scan require are not the ones that are commonly present with Kali or Parrot core packages. Anyhow, running that content specific, I mean CMS specific scan can give you more information, right? Or you can search for this information directly on ExploitDB. So I'm going on ExploitDB and searching for Drupal. It will list all Drupal related exploits for you. Right? And this is online source for searching vulnerabilities associated with a keyword on ExploitDB website. The best thing about using Kali Linux is there is a script that you can use, which is searchsploit, to search for all these exploits, because Kali comes with all these scripts that are present. I mean, all the exploits that are present on this server, right? As a local copy for you. So all these scripts are actually present as part of user share exploit DB. So this is the place where all the exploits are already stored. So if you head towards the exploits location, everything is properly categorized on which platform, for which service, right? And so on. You can actually take advantage of searchsploit to search for that particular script using your, search for that vulnerabilities using the keyword directly from your terminal. So let's use searchsploit Drupal 7 as a keyword. There are so many things that it displayed, right? And the same exact results you can actually see on ExploitDB. So this is first way to search for the vulnerabilities that are associated with it. So why I'm doing it for Drupal 7? Because Drupal 7 is generally vulnerable, and we know that there must be some kind of exploit code. But this is the process that you must apply for both, for other versions of the software that you've identified. It can be PHP, right? Or Apache or VSFTPD, right? It is same exact technique that you need to apply. So for example, VSFTPD 3.0.2 I can search for it on search exploit. VSFTPD 3.2.0, sorry, 0.2. There are no exploits that are available. So if I search for Apache, going very specific with 2.4.7. So the version of the software may be vulnerable, but we may not have exploits, right? There can be a number of reasons. And when I look into this, there are a lot of different vulnerabilities. Apache with PHP 5.3.12. So the one that we have is 5.5.9. So it is not matching, right? So this is a combinational one, means you need to have Apache with PHP. Right? This stack is important. If it is there with Apache and some other server technology, it can be IAS or I mean Apache with some Python or else Ruby related thing, then this particular exploit will not work. So understanding what is the vulnerability, what is the exact version of the software, and then matching exploits, searching for matching exploits is really a skill. Takes time, but take these tips and try to implement that when you are practicing it on all different devices that you are going to attack. By simply looking at this Apache 2.4.7, I can only see two things that are matching, but they don't have but these two things are not associated with other versions of the software that must present on our target. That is the reason why I'm not going to pick these two things, right? I'm moving on to Drupal 7. So everything from our database that we have collected from the previous steps. Please note that we also have a Wireshark capture. So I didn't opened it or applied any kind of technique there. We'll come back to that later. So these are all things that we did as part of our enumeration. So let's proceed further by finding the right exploit from this huge list of exploits that I'm seeing. From all these things, we don't know the exact version of Drupal 7. My bad. If I am able to run Drup scan, I could have showed you what is the exact version of Drupal 7, but don't worry. That is also a good example now. So these are the set of exploits that I can trust, right? Among all these things that are matching with the version of the software, which ones are not relevant for us? Wherever you see denial of service, these are not relevant. We are not going to use that. And apart from that, we have some kind of authenticated remote code execution. Means only if you are a authenticated user on the Drupal application, you can use this remote code execution. If not, it is not going to work. Right? So further narrowing down the result, we have only these things that are relevant. So any Drupal version that is between 7 and 7.31 is vulnerable for SQL injection. And what we can do is we can add admin user. Acha. There is a web page on this port 192.168.0.175. We don't know any user credential here, right? So if I try default password or admin, it is not working. But because of this vulnerability, we can add a new admin user. Very good. So we can copy down this particular information onto our report. Sorry. And we got this one from exploit DB. And maybe this is the same exact thing that we may find in Metasploit also. So the first exploit that we found is this, which can help us in performing that attack. All right. And VSFTPD, Apache are not that helpful, so we are not going to write anything. Next thing that you can see is remote code execution here. Reset password is not going to work because we don't even have account what we can reset for, right? We already have access to the account, then we can do the reset, but we don't have access to the account, so there is no reset option. So admin session related group attack. So we don't have admin session. Maybe after creating an admin user, you can try this particular exploit. But for now, it is not relevant. Are you observing how I am cutting down all those results or else possibilities that search exploit popped on the screen? So we have this first one, which is add admin user, and observe the last one. There is no authenticated code execution, but there is remote code execution vulnerability associated with it. So I can copy this one too onto my list for the second exploit. That's it. No additional information apart from this. So there is no third exploit that I can use. There are two different exploits that we identified. Are there any Metasploit modules? So we used the exploit DB and we found two different vulnerabilities associated with Drupal 7, and we got access to two exploits. Now let's go on to Metasploit and see if we can find some modules associated with it. So as I'm starting Metasploit for the first time on boot, I'm going to use service. Sudo service PostgreSQL start. PostgreSQL is a database that is associated with Metasploit. So if PostgreSQL is started, then your search for Metasploit related modules will become a little bit faster. I'm going to load MSF console with -Q option to quit any kind of unnecessary banners and directly take me on to MSF6 prompt. Once we have an MSF6 prompt, we can start searching for Drupal 7. Oh, there are so many things associated with Drupal 7 again. Among all these things, which one is relevant? Now we need to read the description and see which one is relevant. So if you carefully observe, this Drupal 2 or Drupal 3 that we saw before are all related to authenticated code executions. So mostly we may not be able to use them in this scenario, right? So if you know the exact version of Drupal 7, then you can pinpoint which one is going to work and which one is not going to work, right? Or else you can go with trial and error method. Try loading each and every exploit that you see. There are just 7 modules. You can load and see which one works, right? Again, that is a bad habit, but you need to put efforts towards doing research and figuring out the right one. And if you carefully observe the one that we choose here, which is remote code execution, right? So the second one that we saw here, which is remote code execution, is nothing but this one, right? Drupal. You can read information related to that info 2. This module exploits Drupal HTTP parameter, blah, 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 right? And it can give us a remote connection towards the target device. Now, after searching for vulnerabilities, the next step is to know what kind of information these exploits are going to use. So one of the most important concepts that you need to understand are what kind of privilege escalation or what kind of exploit codes to use. There are different types of things that you can find in Metasploit and also our exploit DB. I mean, different types of exploits. So the major categories are remote exploits and local exploits. What are remote exploits? Remote exploits will actually help us in exploiting the remote service and give us initial access to the target server. Post exploits or local exploits are only helpful in post exploitation step. I mean, the local exploits work only after gaining access to the target mission. Without gaining access to the target mission, those exploits are not going to help you, right? So let me show you both the ways. So this one is going to help us in doing the remote code execution, right? Let's target this. I'm going to load this module. So I'm going to push this a little bit quick because you already know how to use Metasploit framework. So PHP Metameter reverse underscore TCP, I'm going to leave that as it is. When I verify options, one of the most important options that you need to set is rhost. So set rhost. The target's IP address is 192.168.0.175. That's it. So I'm going to leave the port number to port 80 because that is the port where the service is running. So you need to change it. And the target is PHP going to interpret this PHP payload that I'm going to send because Drupal is built with PHP. So the payload is also correct. So I no need to change the payload as that is picked by this exploit by default. After setting up all these options, the final thing that we must do is to run exploit. If we are lucky enough, we must gain access to Meterbitter. Very good. Let us give it some time and see if we can get Meterbitter access. In the meanwhile, let's move on to the next one that we saw. We got success with this exploit, right? So you can actually put all the steps and the commands that we have executed and take some screenshots and add that as part of the report. Are you understanding? This is how you can go with the report. So I highly recommend you to do this on regular basis, whatever mission that you are solving, try to go with this process, right? So it becomes a habit for all of us when we are directly facing an exam or else doing a real life pen test. All right, we have access to the target mission. As I already mentioned, there are 3 different flags that you must collect. The first flag must be there in the user home location, right? And the second flag is also there on the user home location. So generally the flags are kept in user home and root home as a proof of concept to see if you gained access to the root user or normal user. So where am I right now? I am there under the var www HTML directory. And when I check get UID, I am www data user. All right, very good. Keeping this thing aside, let's directly jump onto home location and do ls-l. And you can see 2 different directories, Harry and Jack. If I'm not wrong, these are the 2 different users on this box. So there are specific things that you need to check when you gain access to a Linux machine. PassWD file is one interesting file that you must always verify. So Jack is the user, Harry is the user, right? So we have Meterbitter access. So we are simply able to run the Linux commands and check all these things. If we have a basic shell, even on the shell, we must be able to do all these tasks. So I have few more practicals where I want to demonstrate the enumeration things that you need to do when you gain access to the Linux machine and also Windows machine, which we will be doing in internal pen testing tomorrow, right? For now, you can actually see there is Jack and Harry. Let's try if I can enter Harry's home location. No. Can I enter Jack's home location? Yes. There is your first flag. Oops. Flag1.txt. That's it. So we gained access, that's okay, fine, but we are not able to enter Harry's location because we don't have permissions to read something or enter the directory of Harry. Locked. So what is that we must do as part of post exploitation? We gained access. We are done with exploitation. So vulnerability identification and exploitation done. So before moving on other post exploitation activities, let's look at the other exploit that we found, which is adding admin user, right? So is the first one clear? First exploit clear? If yes, please drop 2 in the chat so that we can move on to the second one. I hope you all are understanding the importance of information gathering. I mean, the time that we have spent in information gathering and enumerating the services. Only if you do that correct, this process becomes very simple and we can immediately gain access. Right? All right. Let's move on to the second one. So the add admin user exploit is actually present as part of your mission in this location. So this is the exact path. So you can use search-ploit to clone this script onto your desktop. So let me switch to the desktop location and run the same search-ploit command with -m option. Search-ploit with -m will mirror the file that is present in user share exploit db location onto the specific directory where you are right now without, if you are not specifying the path. We have that a particular exploit here. So 34992.py. Let's see if I can run this script. So Python 34992. So this is a clear indication that it is using Python 2, not Python 3. So I must specify Python 2. Very good. I'm able to make it run. So most of the exploits that you see on exploit DB are actually built for Python 2. In fact, in your Kali or Parrot, you will see both Python 2 and 3 installed, but you need to identify which one works, right? Again, trial and error. So in case of Python 3, you need to specify braces for any print statement. So as you can see here, there is no brace. That is the reason why it is throwing some exception. So you can take advantage of running it as a Python 2. So Python 2. So Drupal version between this and this, add admin account. So this gives us the help manual on how to do this, how to add admin. So specify the exploit path with target IP address or the domain name, followed by the user you want to create and the password that you want to set for that user. Great. So let's go with the same command that we used before. http://192.168.0.175. That is where the Drupal service is running. You can specify a username. Let me go random and specify admin1, right? Or else I can specify Reva and the password with -p option as 123. Right? We are not able to get success. I don't know why, where it went wrong. Simply look at the options. Okay, I didn't specify -t. I need to specify -t. Target. Very good. Vulnerable. Administrator user created. Login as Reva with password 123. If I go on this login page, boom, we are into that administrative panel. So once you gain access to this administrative panel, you can actually upload shell and get reverse connection, which we will be seeing in web application module. But for now, my intention is to let you know the process for exploiting vulnerabilities. Please note that each and every vulnerability will be different. You need to understand which one works for you at that moment. So when you list vulnerabilities, try to check for what kind of access you are expecting. If you already have access, then we'll look for some privilege escalation or some post exploitation activity like information grabbing or something else. But if you don't have access, we always look for remote code execution vulnerability so that we can have initial access to the target server. Same as what we did right now. And in these two exploits, there is a difference. What is the difference? In case of add admin, you gained access to the Drupal application itself, right? You don't have a reverse connection to the target mission, right? But in case of remote code execution vulnerability that we exploited, we gained access to Matterbitter, means we have access to that system, right? So this is the thing that we must practice. You must take advantage of information that is present in the exploit DB section or Metasploit related exploit related description. Try to understand what kind of access we can get, what is that exact vulnerability and so on. Of course, why we will do it for do it every time? Say, now you know that Drupal 7 is vulnerable and there are two exploits that you actually can use to gain access. Next time when you come across Drupal 7, you can immediately go there. Yes or no? Are you understanding? Please don't apply that here, which is completely illegal. In fact, UPSC website was compromised by attackers back in 2017, I think so, 17 or 18. Maybe because of the same Drupal 7 vulnerability. I don't think the administrators are there with the same exact vulnerability yet. So it must have patched. It must have been patched by adding some kind of fix to it, or else they may have some additional firewalls in place which will detect this and block the attack, right? So my intention is not to encourage you to do this particular attack here, but this is how the external machines, external servers, right, can be exploited. I hope you got the complete picture of what you can do from external world, external pen testing. Is it clear, my dear friends?
Yes, sir.
Great. So what we have performed is just gaining access to that particular box, right? So let's proceed further with the post-exploitation activities. We are done with vulnerability identification, exploitation, and now it is time for us to perform post-exploitation. So I will take advantage of explaining few Linux related post-exploitation steps as part of this section, but you can actually apply this anywhere once you gain access to the target. Tomorrow I will also cover a few more attacks as part of internal pen testing, right? So where we'll see how we can take advantage of elevating our privileges or else exploiting few other vulnerabilities that are present on the target. So let's proceed with this box. And we have flag 1 in hand, but I don't have access to the other user account. One thing that you can do is to enumerate this box again. This time you are doing post enumeration. Please note down these points in your notes. So at this point, we have access to the box, but we are not a privileged user to access the Harry's home or root user control. So there are tons of different scripts that can automate your job at this point. You can take advantage of Linux Smart Enumeration Script or Linux Enumeration Script 2, or you can simply search on Google. You will get a lot of enumeration scripts or else privilege escalation or exploitation related scripts. So one of those things that I frequently use is Linux Smart Enumeration Script. How many of you have used this before? All right. So how many of you are new to this privilege escalation part? If you are new to privilege escalation, please drop N in the chat so that I can go a little bit slow on giving you the overall process in detail. Very good. All right. Okay, then I can see that almost all of most of the attendees are actually new. Let me take you through the process step by step. So after gaining access, my whole and sole intention is to compromise the actual computer. I mean, compromising actual computer means owning that box, gaining root level access. So right now I am there as a normal www data. This user in general will not have shell. I mean, if I check this etc passwd, this is a service account, right? And you will not have login. Bash, no bin bash. But with the meterpreter that you gained access to, you can simply go and run shell commands too. So the beauty with meterpreter is simply running shell, which will take you onto the shell. And you can actually use this particular prompt to run any kind of command, feeling like you are having SSH connection to the target server. Okay, fine. One more thing that you can face difficulty with this shell is the shell is non-interactive. Means commands like sudo, like if I go with sudo su or something else, right, you will not be able to run them because interactive commands, right, are not going to work under this non-interactive shell. Anyhow, we gained access to meterpreter. Let's try our best on using this meterpreter to the maximum extent. What is the first thing that I must do? I'm going to automate this Linux privilege escalation step by simply uploading this Linux enumeration script there. Let me drop this link in the chat for your reference. So you can use this script to automate the entire process of privilege escalation. So for now, let me clone this script onto my computer and then upload it onto the target. So I'm going to clone this onto my Kali Linux. Please note that if you have shell access to the target machine, you may or may not be able to upload this script there with wget command or else directly clone it there, because we can't expect the git utility on the target. Git may not be present on the target machine, so you can't run git clone there. So you must always clone it onto your computer first and then upload it from your computer onto the target, because you already have access, right, to the target from your computer. So if I take shell and then run this git command there, it may not work. So git space clone space path. We cloned it. Or you can also use this command to directly get that Linux enumeration shell script. This is yet another easy alternate. So you can clone and copy this or directly get this. So this is one liner. So if the target have wget installed, right, then you can do this job. Say, let's check if the target have wget installed or not. So I'm going on to shell and checking wget tac version or simply running wget. So we can see that the wget is installed there. So as wget is installed, I can simply download this onto the target machine. But where am I? I'm there on Jack's home location. As a www data user, I may not have permissions to download, run files or something else here, because I don't have read permissions, write permissions, right, to do all this job on some other user's directory. So let's directly jump onto temp location and dump this particular file there. So when I do ls, you can see that the file is present in the temporary location now. Or you can also take advantage of Meterpreter's upload functionality to upload the file. That is the advantage that you can have with Meterpreter. Right? Very good. We uploaded the shell. So now let's verify if the shell is there. Yes, sorry. Yes, the shell is still there. Again, in Meterpreter, I can't run all those commands to make sure that I use it as a normal shell, because a few commands will not work from Meterpreter. That is the reason why we are going with the shell and then running all these things on that shell. Right? So let's see to what extent we can take this. We are there on temp, and I need to add execute permissions, right? For Linux smart enumeration.sh script. Now if I run ls-l, you can see it is executable. Let's run this particular script without interactive prompts asking. I mean interactive questions asking. So Linux smart enumeration script followed by -i option. It will not ask any kind of interactive questions. Let it run. It will identify all different files, right? Or post-enumerate the mission for permissions, interesting files, or any kind of misconfigurations that are present on the target device. Let the scan complete. In the meanwhile, let me tell you what are the things that you can check manually if you are not using this script. In few cases, you will not have access to upload scripts there. So in that case, what are the things that you need to verify? Please take down. The first thing that we need to verify is Linux kernel version. Because most of these Linux kernel versions are vulnerable and you can easily get an exploit online. So you can upload that exploit and run that exploit to get a privileged state. Right? Second thing that we'll check is bad or else sudo rights that the current user have. If the current user access that you gained have sudo rights, I mean, can run specific commands as a root user, right? You can elevate your state by abusing that sudo permission. Of course, you cannot do it with all different permissions that you have. I mean, for all different applications to the programs that you have. But there are some specific programs that you can use for this particular task. So abusing sudo rights is the second thing. Third one is abusing SUID bits. Files that are there with SUID bit permission set can be utilized for elevating privileges if possible. Not all SUID bit permission or SUID bit files are going to help us do this job. Next thing that you can enumerate and find are bad permissions. Bad permissions for sensitive files like etc passwd file and etc shadow. If there is a bad permission set, I mean writable permission set for etc password, if you can edit that file, right, you can add your own password. You can generate a password hash, add that password hash to elevate your privileges. And yet another thing is to check the automated jobs. So if there are some cron jobs scheduled, right? So how many of you have dealt with cron jobs before? So if cron jobs are set with bad permissions, then you can exploit those jobs to gain access to the elevated state or initial access to the target box. So for now, let's look at what we can find on this particular mission. So as the script execution finished and completed, you can see that it actually identified a CVE, right, with pseudo version. So pseudo version is 1.8.9 P5. Can copy this and do a little bit of Googling about it to find any kind of, if you can find any kind of exploit, then it will be good. So you can see there is a local privilege escalation. So any pseudo version that is less than 1.8.14. So there is a matching version for us. So let's move on to the post exploitation section. So post exploitation, you can note down that our target have vulnerable pseudo version which we can exploit. Oops. So vulnerable pseudo version that we can exploit. So I'm missing, I'm not getting time on organizing it correctly, but I think you can do it, right? So this is a bare template that we have, and you can use it to do a lot of other tasks. So pseudo permissions and anything additional, you can see a lot of different files, services that are present, and it is actually telling that there is a possibility to exploit the cron jobs that are scheduled, right? So you can write to executable paths present in cron jobs. So if that is the case, you can simply go and write a malicious executable file into that location to get a reverse connection. I will demonstrate that with other practical on the different box that we have. And apart from that, it is telling that uncommon SUID bit binary is present, is yes. And it is located under user bin, right? So what are you searching for? I am here. This is uncommon executable. Maybe this can help us in privilege escalation, who knows? So this is regarding SUID bit file, right? So SUID bit is set for this file, means anyone can execute this, even root user. Sorry, if this is owned by root user, right? You can actually run this executable as a root user. So let's see something else related to sudo here. The current user can actually run find command, right, without the password of Harry as Harry. Great. So we found multiple ways for the post exploitation section. We have some uncommon binary, and we have sudo permissions set with this. So you can note down like sudo permissions to run find command as Harry. So the current user www data can become Harry if we can abuse this find command. Very good. Next, SUID bit permission is set for a non-common binary. So you can go with this detail. And there is a cron job thing also, right? So can write to a executable path present in cron job. Yes, we got enough information. Now we can proceed. From this post exploitation things that we identified, I think this find command, I mean sudo write that we have, can help us in doing the horizontal privilege escalation, right? So we can gain access to Harry if you can abuse this sudo write. Other things we must check what we can do with them. If possible, we can use those things to elevate our privilege and get root access, which in turn nothing but vertical privilege escalation. So let's start enumerating this mission for those findings and see if we can elevate our privileges. So if I want to do that from this interactive shell, let us see if I can run sudo. I can run sudo with -L option to see what are the sudo rights that the current user have. Please take down these commands. So sudo -L is the first command that you must run to check what are the sudo rights that the current user have. Means what are the commands that this current user can execute as a super user on this computer. Of course, this user cannot run sudo command as a root user, but he can run sudo as Harry, limited to only one executable, that is find. Can we use find for privilege escalation? Please take down this resource. One of these two good resources that can help you know this information is GTFO bins. This is the website that actually lists all different binaries that you can use for privilege escalation. What is the binary that we found, that we identified in this process? Find, right? So let me search for find. Okay, find binary with sudo permissions, you can do privilege escalation. Even if SUID bit is set for find, you can do privilege escalation. So let us click on sudo, and you can see what is the command that you can use to abuse this sudo right. If you carefully observe this command, we have rights to run sudo, but in this command, you are actually adding sudo, means you are running it as a super user, I mean the root user. But in our scenario, we cannot run this command as a root user. We can only run this command as Harry, that's it. We must tweak this command a little bit. In general, we can actually copy this command and run this command directly. So even if you run that command directly, you will see that it displays a message, you can't run this, right? But let me see if I can ask interactive bash. Yes, this is good, right? Please note that this is not complete interactive bash. You can't autofill or else clear screen and all. I will tell you yet another technique for getting a good shell in the upcoming practicals. But for now, we are still there as www data. So we cannot run this particular command as a root user at all. To run this command as Harry, find command as Harry, you can use sudo with -u option and specify the user who you want to run this as. And I'm going to simply put this find command. It's all about copy paste. All you need is the technique. Anyhow, we are back onto the normal non-interactive shell. If I do ID, who am I right now? I am Harry. Bash -I, Harry@hacker school. You got access as Harry. So with this permission in hand, you can go on to the home location of Harry to collect your second flag. Got it? Is it interesting? This is one technique of elevating your privileges. It comes very handy in case of exam. Anyhow, here there is a twist I intentionally added to let you know that everything will not work same as what you see on the resources, right? So you need to understand what kind of right that you have and what you can execute and how you can take advantage of the existing permissions to elevate your state. Right? Things are different. in different situations. That is very important to understand. All right, I hope you got this idea. I mean, you got the step correct. So let me copy these flags onto my documentation. And my dear friends, if you have any questions, I want you all to please let me know your questions so I can answer them before we proceed on to the next technique. So we are done with flag 1 and flag 2. Obviously, the last flag is nothing but the root flag or administrator flag. So our mission is responding for ping. Is it firewalled? I don't think so. Right? So the firewalled one is a different mission. So is it part of a domain? No. What is the operating system? It is Linux. Right? So the host name is HSBox. We are almost there to complete this. So again, I'm not adding complete details here on what is the process that I followed on exploiting it. Anyhow, you will have access to the recorded lecture, right? So you can take screenshots and put that particular screenshot as part of the report too. So is everything good so far? Can we continue onto the horizontal vertical privilege escalation, elevating our privileges to root?
Yes, sir.
Very good. How about others? Others, are you all in understanding? Is it interesting or else is it boring? Are you getting the process right? If I ask these many questions, what to answer, right? Okay then. If you want me to proceed, please drop P in the chat. So we have seen how we can elevate our privileges with the help of abusing sudo rights, and I've showed you only one example. And any kind of program that you see here as part of the sudo permissions that you have, so find or some other thing, you can go on this GTFO bins and search for it there. So let me drop this link in the chat for your reference. So the process on identifying whether we can do privilege escalation with that or not is same, right? Great. Now let's move on to the next step. This time, I want to take advantage of performing vertical privilege escalation by abusing SUID bit permissions. Right? So how can we do that? We can simply take advantage of running find command to search for all different executables that are of SUID bit files. Anyhow, this script directly told us where the unusual SUID bit is present, right? But every time we may not be able to see that. So take down the command. You can use find command to start search from main root location, because we know that it is a Linux mission. Start search from the main root location and search for files with permissions where user bit is set to yes. So it means this any file that have the user permissions or owner permissions with S instead of X, read, write, executable, right? So instead of X, in place of executable, you will see yes. I'm asking find to find all those kind of files, right? And what it must be a file. Type must be file. And any errors that you see on the screen in this process, redirect them to div null. So let me drop this command in the chat. My dear friends, don't execute any command without understanding what it is. Always do your own research, finding out what is the purpose. That is very, very, very important. Now the unusual binary that we find is this one. Anyhow, there are a bunch of other binaries also, right? You can take advantage of copying these details, say ping, right? Ping 6, su, umount. You can go on GTFO bins and search if there is a way I can use ping. No. Ping 6, no. Can I use sudo su? No. If you have su with sudo rights, then you can abuse. But su with SUID bit set, no way. So let me show you how the SUID bit permissions, SUID bit files look like. I'm going to copy this one and run ls-l command with the file path. So are you observing that in the user or the owner permission section, instead of X in the executable section, you will see yes, means this is a SUID bit set file. So in this SUID bit set file, you are seeing the owner of the file as root. Owner of the file is root. As SUID bit is set, anyone who execute this file, I am here, they are going to run this file as root user. Right? So all these files are also similar kind. So if you want sudo, you can run sudo as the owner of that file. So if I copy this and check who is the owner of that file, root is the owner. If root is the owner, I can actually use this sudo, right, or run this sudo as root user on temporary basis. That is the purpose of SUID bit. So if I do sudo, no, sudo with SUID bit permissions, you can't use it for privilege escalation. I think you all know what is the purpose of GTFO bins by now. So it will tell what kind of executable can be used for privilege escalation or performing some kind of horizontal or vertical privilege escalation. Anyhow, we automated the process here, identified all that information, but this is the manual process. If you are not able to upload the files there, right, you must do it using this technique. Anyhow, as this is the unusual file, I am here is not a Linux executable in general. This is unusual. That is the reason why we are going to check what is that program going to do. I'm going to do ls. ls-l, it is a SUID bit file. What happens if I run I am here? Wanna become root user on this mission? Let me think. Okay, here you go. What? Is it true? Hello? Are you observing that? Right? You are root user on that box. How this happened? In fact, this is not a generic, this is not a common executable that you'll find on Linux machines. This is intentionally created file just to demonstrate this particular practical. Okay. So I wrote a simple C code to generate a shell, right? And you are running this as a root user because SUID bit is set for it. If you run this, no matter who you are on this box, if you run this, you are running this executable as a root user. This program is going to give you a shell and you are running it as a root user. So you'll get a root shell. Got it? So cd root, we have final flag. Done. I hope this particular box gave you the right methodology. on how you can exploit it, exploit the vulnerabilities existing on the target service or target mission. Anyhow, we successfully managed to complete the task, but still there are multiple ways in which you can exploit it. So we just did the SUID bit thing, and we did this sudo permissions. We can also use kernel exploits to do privilege escalation or also exploit this cron jobs. So I will cover these two things later in tomorrow's session, just not to confuse you with all the things on the same day. All right. But wait, we found a Wireshark capture. Can you people please help me on analyzing that Wireshark capture and tell me what are the findings that you made in Wireshark capture? Let me give you 10 minutes time. And I hope you all know how to download that Wireshark capture from that box. So you can make a FTP connection to that box and then download Wireshark capture. And tell me what are the things that you have found interesting on that Wireshark capture. Use the 3-step technique that I've explained you while enumerating, while going with the Wireshark demonstration before. So what are the 3 things that we must do? IP address, protocol, port numbers. So apply that and see if we can find something interesting as part of that Wireshark capture. So let me give you 10 minutes time. And in the meanwhile, my dear friends, any other questions that you have related to the things that we discussed today, please let me know. And the quiz is also uploaded on the LMS.
Yes, sir, it's uploaded. They can take it
Okay.
anytime before tonight.
Yes, yes. Okay, fine.
Bhumika, please give us some time because tomorrow also we have classes and we have even personal things. So I hope you understand that. Please push it till tomorrow evening.
Okay. I don't mind if because they informed me that it's day 2 quiz. That's the reason they told me to put the time till end of the day. Giant sir, is it okay? Like if we extend?
Please contact the organizer and then take the decision. It's okay, fine for me, but your
Okay, sir,
university may have a policy and they may need this information to update and so on, right? So please contact the concerned party to decide.
Yes, sir. I'll ask Tinsi ma'am once and I'll let them know.
For me, it is all about your convenience. You can go with the test anytime. My dear friends, are you all doing that? Got access to the Wireshark?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Are you able to find something interesting? Or else let me tell you what you will find. You will be able to find some kind of hint for password. There is a such port open, right? So you can actually use that hint to log into SSH directly. You can completely avoid this exploitation step. In fact, I showed you the lengthiest process. There is a shortcut way on that box to do all this step.
Sir, I just checked with Dinsi ma'am.
Okay.
So participants have to take the quiz today. It's like according to the schedule, day 2 quiz. It's just 30 questions. I think they can like take it. I've set the time till 11:30.
Okay, okay. So, my dear friends, with today's content, we actually completed the actual methodology on how to perform the attack, identifying the information from external world and identifying the actual loopholes that may exist on the target device and exploit them. Tomorrow, we'll move on to internal pen testing and perimeter pen testing. So tomorrow we'll take a different approach. We'll start with the theory part. We'll complete the theory part and then we'll move on to the practicals. Okay. So please make sure that you revise the things that we covered as part of today's session so that it will be easy for you to understand the concepts that we are going to cover in tomorrow's session. Please note that tomorrow we are going to do a lot of interesting tasks, including the Active Directory related exploitation, how this can be slightly different. So I'll actually combine the internal pen testing with Active Directory, right? So that it will be easy. So all these practicals, you can do them on your iLabs platform, right? In fact, as I've already showed you on day 1, there will be 4 to 5 practicals there, but here in the demonstrations, we are doing a lot of different things. So add these things also onto your running notes, which will really help you a lot if you are planning to write CPENT exam. And not only that, even if you grab an opportunity to work as a penetration tester, trust me, the notes that you prepare here is the base. Got any hint? All right, my dear friends, can we move on to the final step, analyzing the Wireshark capture and wrapping up this box? You want me to tell the solution or you want to give it a try?
I would suggest you give it anyway. We are running late.
Yeah, okay, fine. Let me tell you. I hope you all are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's proceed. This is the Wireshark capture that we grabbed from that box, and you can see a lot of IP addresses here with private IP, public IP, right? But this is a capture that was not a live capture. I mean, we didn't did this particular capture. We actually downloaded it from some public server. So this is a predefined capture, not a live capture. Maybe administrator did this particular capture during a specific time and he want to analyze this. Just to analyze this later, he uploaded it onto the FTP server so that he can download it when he is back home or else when he want to do it later. From all these IP addresses, you are seeing some public IPs and private IPs. We all know that our task is more associated with private IPs. So what are the private IPs that we are seeing here? It is 192.168.0.103 as more frequent. And the other one that you are seeing is 103, a lot of times 103. 192.168.103 and 112. Of course, here the interesting service is SSH. You can simply apply TCP.port is equal to 22. So you'll see only SSH communication. SSH related communication is happening only between 103 and 112. Anyhow, you will not be able to read this conversation because this is completely encrypted. SSH will transfer the content only over encrypted channel. But I know the IP addresses, so let's filter based on IP addresses, based on the tip that I already gave you. 192.168.0.103 ampersand IP dot ADDR is equal to 192.168.0. What happened? Let me apply this once again. IP.addr.192.168.0.103 ampersand 192 dot IP.addr is equal to 192.168.0.112. These are the only things that are associated with this IP address. Okay. I have a lot of TCP and SSH connections. Along with that, we are able to see HTTP. Great. There are some HTTP packets, a lot of TCP packets. As we filtered based on IP address now, let's proceed with the protocol. Obviously, the interesting protocol is HTTP because we may find some clear text content. A lot of HTTP packets. So if I analyze any of these packets, say if I select one of these HTTP packets, and I hope you all know how to analyze Wireshark traffic. So there is some line-based text. I can see the entire content, right, of the HTTP page. It looks like the Drupal page that we have seen before. You can actually look at HTTP protocol section, and this is clearly telling the Apache version servers details, right? Along with that, somewhere in the cookie and some parameters, I'm able to see Drupal 7. No doubt this is related to Drupal. It means we can find the admin login thing if we have some post packet here. So I can search for the post packet in this entire HTTP conversation, or you can also apply the filter like http dot request dot method is equal to post. Very good. We got access to one post packet. If I analyze the content of the packet, we have admin @123 as password. Okay. This is the actual login detail for that Drupal application, right? Anyhow, we found our way to create a new admin user. That's a different story. But this is how you can find a password. Anyhow, after gaining access to that admin panel, you must upload some shell to get reverse connection, which we didn't learn so far. We'll do that in web application section. So that is for HTTP. Apart from HTTP, we saw a lot of TCP traffic, right? So TCP protocol, or simply write TCP, you will see a lot of TCP related packets, right? So you can select any of these TCP packets, right, and see what is happening. Few of these TCP connections are for identifying SSH and then making connection to SSH. The third thing that I told you is port numbers, right? One unusual port that you are seeing in this conversation, apart from port 22, is 6666. What is this 6666 running? Right click, follow, TCP stream. Hello Jack, we observed that your account password is very simple. To guess, please use strong password. It is very simple to guess, so please use strong password. Got the hint? Who is the user?
It's
No
the
doubt.
Jack.
Check.
Very good. You all are correct, Jack. What can be the simple password? Can you guess?
Jack.
Very good. You can try checking for the common possibilities like Jack as a password, or Jack with blank password. Blank passwords are not allowed in SSH, so that may not be a possibility. But you can go with reverse of this name as password. I hope you all know how to use Hydra, Medusa, right? Or word list building tools like Quill, Cup, and Crunch for doing all these tasks, right? So try and see if you can get it with Hydra. I hope you all know how to use Hydra.
The reverse password worked for Jack.
Very good. Yes, you are correct. So you no need to do that exploitation at all. So this is quite common even in the real life environments. The same exact simple password will be set and used more frequent, repeated passwords, right? I mean, the same password for multiple services. So one of those things that I've told you at the beginning point of today's session, like Active Directory environment, the local admin password will be same, right? For all different missions in the network. If you can compromise one device, gone. You can gain access to all other devices too. So tomorrow we'll talk about all those attacks that we can perform as part of internal pen test. I mean, once you gain access to the target network, of course, the process remains same. There is nothing completely different that you will see as part of this methodology or the process, right? Knowing the right methodology will make your pen testing job simple. I hope with the practice that we did on exploiting this box helped you in understanding the methodology. How was today's session? Have you enjoyed it? Learned something new? Which session is interesting, day 1 or day 2?
Day 2.
Very good. Is it because of privilege escalation or exploits that we have used?
Yeah, many practicals made it interesting.
Yes, yes. But do remember, the methodology that we have learned is very important. You can actually exploit the HSV box on your own now. So the HS box that I've shared on day 1, you already have access to all different tools, but you are unable to put them in the order. So that is the reason why I managed to complete that along with the actual syllabus today, so that you can easily solve any of those boxes from here on. And you can prepare your own cheat, own report template, as I've showed you before, right? By adding all the key elements. You can also expand that particular template with all different tools that you already know. Tomorrow, we'll talk about few more aspects that can add up to this particular process. With that thing said, that's all for today's session. So any other questions that you have, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer. And one more thing, my dear friends. Tomorrow we are going to learn the internal pen testing process along with perimeter pen testing. We will perform some pivoting and double pivoting, which can be a little bit confusing. So please don't hesitate to raise questions if you feel difficult at any point of time. And I highly recommend you all to revise these things once you get time on practicing. Do the practice on the boxes that I've shared with you, and also do the practicals that are present on iLabs. So you will see the difference in the content in iLabs and also in this content that I'm covering as part of the sessions, because the practicals that are there in iLabs will mainly focus on the tools that you can use, imagining that you are already thorough with the methodology. So after training several batches for the same exact course, I thought like it is better if I can begin giving you the right methodology first, so that it becomes the main thing for you to practice and also makes your job of cracking the CPENT exam simple. So do remember, the practice is key. No matter how many tools that you know, they are not going to do the magic. I think with the practicals that we did today, you got the proof, right? No matter, even if you have 100 tools in hand, if you don't know which one to use at what time, it is purposeless. So at any point of time, if you feel difficult, if you face some kind of issue, please let me know. Write an email at jayanth.b@cartelsoftware.com. Let me drop my email address in the chat, jayanth.b@cartelsoftware.com. So the notes that you are preparing, I don't know how many of you are preparing your own notes. Are you all writing notes during the session? If yes, please drop S in the chat. Very good. I appreciate that. So do remember, this notes is going to help you a lot. Even for day 5 challenge, which is the last practical exam, right? I'll give you a very simple challenge. Yes, very good, very good. Make sure that you are referring to that notes, and make sure that you add more stuff onto that notes, right? So any new thing that you find, you put that onto that running notes. So most importantly, the resources that I am providing, it can be like GTFO bins or any websites that we are visiting, which can help us in simplifying the process, right? But don't completely rely on automated tools. That is my sincere suggestion, because most of the times the automated tools may not work because of the defenses that are present, right? Tomorrow we'll take a quick tour of Metasploit for demonstrating few practicals. There I will show you where it will fail and why it will fail. All right, then, with that thing said, we are finally there at the end of day 2. Tomorrow I'll see you with the remaining 2 modules as per schedule.
Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you. It's my pleasure seeing you all here. Please don't miss out on tomorrow's session, right? Yet another core part. Until then, this is Jayant signing off. Tata, bye-bye, see you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.